Living nigga everywhere I go, man. Juicy J, shut the fuck up!
Yeah, spin that shit.
Memphis nigga everywhere I Memphis nigga everywhere I go.
Living nigga everywhere I go.
Memphis nigga everywhere I go.
Living nigga everywhere I go.
Eyes all red like city gear. Nigga. Draw down on him, make a fuck nigga, give it here. Jeff number 1, I'm the rookie of the year. Wanna see a mad street, make a nigga disappear. Real Memphis nigga when I'm looking in the mirror.
Yo, Memphis nigga everywhere I go, this the remix. Ay. Memphis nigga going up like the G-Mix.
Ay. Everybody outside, it's the freak nigga. Memphis nigga everywhere I go.
Fuck nigga, Memphis nigga everywhere I go. Let's get it. Memphis nigga everywhere I go. Let's get it. Memphis nigga everywhere I go. Let's get it. Memphis nigga everywhere I big head that hoe. Memphis shit, that's how I feel. Shit might check me a hoe, might flame me a hoe. Spit a little game on a hoe. Never spend change on a hoe. Memphis nigga everywhere I go.
He ain't even been to the city before. Fuck nigga. He ain't even been to the city. He ain't even been to the city before. Let's get it. Nigga came once, but he can't come back no more. These Memphis nigga when I drop my low. Yo, nigga want smoke, let's go. Yo, bitch want smoke, fuck nigga, I call Big Glow. Yo,
Memphis bitch everywhere I go. Okay. Memphis bitch everywhere I let's eat. Memphis bitch everywhere I go. Okay. Memphis bitch everywhere I on the count. Memphis bitch everywhere I go. Might take a bitch nigga, might take a nigga hoe. Riding down Fraser be coolin'. With some hot boys still doing donuts in the smoke. Getting money ass bitch, that's me. That's me. Tomato fruit M's and I still want more. Now Memphis bitch got hard. Win, lose, or draw, bitch, I still want smoke. I ain't shit but 25. Let's go. Already a legend up in my seat. Bump down, bump 3-6. Hey, man, play me some of that pimpin'. Gangsta ass bitch, stay muggin'. Everywhere I go, I'm thuggin'. Memphis bitch, everywhere I go. Let's go. And everywhere I go, they love me.
Yeah, living nigga everywhere I step through. 3-6 Mafia and Gangsta Boo. You know what it is, my nigga. My city full of gorillas that ain't from the zoo. North Memphis nigga so infamous. Rest in peace, Lord Infamous. Old school nigga with the pole in the cut. I hear making easy money tryna pimp a slut. Fraser Boulevard and a car all candy. South Memphis bitch, she ain't wearing no panties. She ain't never been nowhere outside our city. I'm a draper in Dior and I'ma take it to the Grammys. Memphis nigga everywhere I step on the scene. Ride through Evergreen, blowing get it green. Give a little bad bitch a hug. With all this water on me, she gon' have a wet dream. You don't know nothing about Hyde Park. You don't really wanna stop by after dark. Even Nick K's know the city I'm reppin'. Have a nigga scat pack go to 60 seconds. 20 years plus I done been in this thing. And a nigga like me ain't never gon' change. Rollin' up dope while I'm sitting so close. I can walk on the floor at the Grizzly game.
I want EP and chicken and dog. She wanna receive what she's seeing under the heart. I'm with Lil P and I'm motherfucking pot. I be like Cheeky, we say squad. Nigga there.
Ayy, Memphis nigga everywhere I go. Get 100 bread a piece when I'm in the stove. Parkway Village, I'm a native. Still had a duck posted up in the Dover. Young nigga wanna be like Craig Pettis, bro wanna be G-Train. Afghanistan top tier, tell Biden send us to Ukraine. Drake made Shelby drag global. Let me tell you about Poplar. We'll stop and deals go for a couple bucks, she'll take it so. East Memphis, that's in that league. North Memphis, that's got it. South Memphis, long live flipper. West Memphis, that ain't Memphis. On EP, eating chicken at Dodge before a nigga went vegan. Might get his 6P from Crumpets. All done left, it's the best jack. Is she from Memphis with a bunny on? She give more head than a lace front. Me go my partner from back in the day, but I heard he hit him a lace blunt. Tell white folks he my nigga. Hey Max Snoop, I got a beer for you. From a city where you win it, they don't even really wanna even cheer for you. Deep down they be hating on you, but too quick to say I love you. In Memphis it's a red flag if she ain't blood and she say brother. Everybody gotta switch in this bitch. Game be beefing with clicks. Tell DJ yo where the dream ball at. I'm tryna stomp some shit. 2016 at the Delta Fair in the corn maze, you could die there. Long live J Money Truly, when he died whole city had tears. Memphis nigga everywhere I go. On cut if it was Idaho. Before Ja it was Mike Conley. Before Jaren it was Zebo. In the lead don't get his credit, but I'm really hometown hero. Might use a key to the city just to lock my back door. Memphis nigga everywhere I go. Memphis nigga everywhere I go. Oh, Memphis nigga everywhere I go. Oh, Memphis nigga everywhere I go. Oh, Memphis nigga everywhere I go. Memphis nigga everywhere I go. Oh, Memphis nigga everywhere. Memphis nigga everywhere I go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. I said good evening again. The sleep is coming in. We headed to day 5. Today, they were doing closing arguments. All 3 defense attorneys once again asked for acquittal. The judge said, hell no. and they started doing jury instructions. I'm guessing, I don't know when they going. Maybe they went to the jury today. I'm not sure. I don't know, but we're going to see this through, whether I catch up or not. Trying to get caught up with, let's see, tonight it will be 5. I do 6 in the morning. I'll be a day behind if I get 6 done tomorrow.
Gentlemen, welcome back. Go ahead and come right back into it. Thanks for being with us.
More defense witnesses. I forgot who won the Boston game. It was good.
Good morning.
Morning.
Tell us your name and spell it for the court.
Yes, my name is Samantha Spencer, Samantha Spencer.
The Knicks pulled out game 1.
Spencer, what's your occupation?
I am an independent forensic consultant.
Tell us what that means.
So that means I mostly help educate attorneys on the forensic science process. I focus in the fields of forensic biology, or DNA and serology, and crime scene reconstruction.
Do you have a scientific background?
I do.
What was your education?
So I received a Bachelor's of Science degree from Erskine College in Due West, South Carolina in 2009. After I received that degree, I went on to work at a genetic center that I help diagnose mostly children with rare genetic diseases. I then accepted a position with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation as a special agent forensic scientist within the forensic biology unit. And then I was also a member of the violent crime response team. During that time, I also got a graduate certificate in the field of forensic DNA and serology from the University of Florida.
How did you get involved with TBI?
So again, I applied and accepted the position when they offered it to me. I participated in training there that all TBI agents go through for both to become a forensic scientist and a member of a violent crime scene.
And what would your position be called?
I was a special agent forensic scientist.
What did that involve?
So for the most part, that involves just working evidence. So when evidence comes into the lab, I would accept it from the evidence receiving unit, take it back to my space in the lab, and then perform my testing, which included serology testing and DNA testing.
While at the TBI, did you get called upon to give testimony in court concerning your findings?
Yes, I did.
And how often did that happen?
I believe a little over 20 times.
And did that include offering opinions on the results of DNA testing?
Yes, it did.
And then did you eventually leave the TBI?
I did. I accepted a position over at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in their shared resource center. So I was helping all of the researchers at St. Jude look at DNA analysis. And then in 2018, me and another former TBI agent decided to form the company that we have now, Set Forensic Consultants, where we offer education and knowledge to attorneys in these fields.
And have you continued testifying in courts since leaving the TBI?
Yes, I have.
And how often have you done it since you left the TBI?
A little over 20 times. I believe this is my 48th opportunity to testify.
And have you had judges recognize you as an expert in the area of forensic biology and DNA testing?
Yes, I have.
Have you ever had a judge refuse to accept you or recognize you as an expert in that field?
No, I have not.
When have you testified on behalf of the state of Tennessee or your TBI?
Correct.
And how did you get paid for that?
It was my salary that I got, the state of Tennessee paid for it.
And you charge now that you're no longer with TBI?
Yes, I take funding from both the state of Tennessee for indigent clients if they do not have the funding, and then I also take private funding from people who can fund it.
And how are you getting paid in this case?
So I'm getting paid through ORAC, which is a legal defense fund for police officers.
Is there any difference in what you do for private individuals and what you do for the government in terms of what you get called on?
No, not really, especially in my testimony portion. The main difference is I don't have a lab right now. It costs millions of dollars to have a DNA lab, so I don't have the equipment to do that. But so I don't touch the evidence and necessarily process it, but I do go through the whole process looking at the data that is produced by the lab.
Do you maintain a resume?
I do.
Your Honor, may I approach you, sir? Are you not you can identify that first?
Yes, sir.
Is that your resume?
It is.
Your Honor, I would mark that as the next exhibit. Okay. That's it.
of the 6-page resume. Spencer, you said 34.
Say 34, Your Honor.
Yes.
Ms. Spencer, what did we ask you to do in this situation?
So like in most cases I get called about, it is looking at the data that was produced by TBI or any forensic lab and reviewing it and then determining what conclusions I would come up with, and then again, helping the attorneys understand what those conclusions mean.
I want to show you a document that's been marked as Exhibit 30 in this case, and see if you can identify that for us.
Yes, sir.
And is that, what is that?
So this is the official forensic biology report issued by the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation.
And are you familiar with the person who actually authored that report?
Yes, I reviewed her work.
And is that somebody you worked with at TBI?
Yes, since I was in the Memphis lab at the time, she works in the Nashville lab, so we didn't work directly with each other, but we worked together, yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would tender Ms. Spencer as an expert in forensic biology through DNA analysis. Your Honor, there's no objection.
Forensic biology through DNA.
Yeah, through DNA. So tell us, what is forensic biology?
So forensic biology can really be broken down into these 5 steps. We have evidence, serology, DNA analysis, interpretation, and then review. So overall, it's the process of finding hopefully a body fluid and then eventually making interpretations on that DNA that was found on that item of evidence.
And so you have the body fluid. Would you know where the body fluid came from?
So yes, once we get into the serology portion, you start looking at specific items of evidence, and then you would be able to identify where you obtained that body fluid from.
Yeah. What is it that you, as an analyst in this case, consider to be evidence?
So myself, as an independent forensic consultant, I'm mostly considering my evidence to be the documentation and data provided by the forensic lab. So in this case, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. On top of all their data and the reports they issued, sometimes I also get things like medical examiner reports, videos from body-worn camera footage or surveillance video, and investigative documentations produced by law enforcement.
And are there other sources of information that you gather other than these documents?
Yeah, again, mostly I'm focusing on the DNA analysis. So that's what my main focus is looking at all of the data produced by the forensic lab.
And that's when you begin once you have all that, that's when you begin your routine that you go through in trying to reach it.
Correct, yes.
Let's just start with serology. Tell us about serology.
So if I was working in the lab and looking at an item of evidence, the first thing I typically would do is to look for a body fluid. And serology is the study of body fluids. In forensics, we mostly focus on blood, semen, and saliva. And the reason we focus on those 3 body fluids is because we know that they contain a good amount of DNA. So we know that once we go through the DNA process, we have a good chance of getting an informative DNA profile that we can actually make some conclusions from. So there's 3 general steps that we go through for serology testing. The first is screening, which means we're just looking at this item of evidence either with our naked eye or with some help. And we're just narrowing down some areas that we want to test. We then do a presumptive test, which is just indicating to us that a body fluid is present. And then we can do a confirmatory test, which will confirm that that body fluid is present.
And how do you, is this things that you get from the TBI?
So again, this isn't me doing this right now. This is what I do when I was in the lab. This is me looking at an actual item of evidence and doing these tests.
But the TBI report would cover all these various items.
Correct. This is exactly what TBI did in all of the evidence submitted in this matter.
And how do you use the results of these tests?
So what I use with these results is it helps me indicate or confirm whether or not a body fluid is present. So once I know whether or not a body fluid is present, I'm then going to use that information along with the DNA results to make an overall conclusion using all of the data that we have available.
So once you get the body fluid, then you go to the DNA analysis?
Yes. So once you identify a body fluid on an item of evidence, you're usually going to take a sampling. Now, or can we go back one slide? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
sometimes if there's not a body fluid, you can just sample an area for what's called trace DNA. So you didn't find anything, it was negative, so you're going to take a Q-tip and kind of run it over the area and collect any DNA that may be there. So after we have that sample that's either has a body fluid on it or that we're just taking that trace DNA from, we're going to take a cutting from it and then go into our DNA process.
Okay. So now, do I go to the next slide?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So this is our DNA process. So first, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. It's the recipe of what makes you, you. So it tells your body everything from your hair and eye color down to your predisposition for diseases. So it is specific to an individual unless you have an identical twin. And we use it in forensics to help identify individuals because it is specific to an individual. So these are the general steps in the DNA process after serology.
So in extraction, what happens?
So extraction is the first step of the DNA process. This is the step that we've found that body fluid, or we've taken a sample from that item of evidence, and we're now going to take that cutting, put it in a tube, and what's called lyse, or open up any cells present, cells such as epithelial cells, skin cells, break those open and pull out the DNA and clean away any cellular debris left over. So we eventually end up with a tube that it just has DNA in it.
So if we were there at the TBI and we looked at the results of that extraction, what would we see in your hand?
It would just look like water. Yeah.
In a small test tube?
Yeah, in a test tube that's about this big, it would just look like water.
And is that all the DNA that you have to work with in any particular testing?
Yes, when we do that extraction step right there, that's the DNA that we're going to work with for the rest of the time, and that's what we've taken from that item of evidence.
So do you ever find yourself having to monitor how much you actually use for one test or another to make sure you have plenty of the evidence?
Yeah, so part of the process of extraction is making decisions on how much water or chemical you're going to put that DNA in, but through the process, we have specific amounts that we use through that, so we're not using it all up. As a forensic scientist, my goal is not to consume a sample. I want to make sure there's some left over, either if I make a mistake or if somebody else needs to process that sample in the future. So yes, we use a small amount every time and don't use it up.
So after extraction, what happens next?
So after extraction, we have quantitation, and that kind of sounds like what it is we're trying to determine how much DNA is there, the quantity of DNA present in our tube. So not only does it give us the total amount of DNA present in that sample, but it also gives us the amount of male DNA in that sample, a male to female ratio, and a degradation index. The degradation index just tells us how much the DNA may be damaged.
And what are you looking for with the quantification?
So the main point of quantification is that it really helps with the downstream application, steps 3 and 4, because we're going to target a specific amount of DNA to go into those steps. It also gives us an idea, again, of how much DNA is present in the sample. Again, if we're looking at our serology results and it's indicating that a body fluid is present, I'm going to look at those serology results and see if that's consistent with a body fluid.
And the next step is amplification?
Yes, so amplification is a fancy science word for making copies. So what we're doing in this step is we're making copies of specific areas of DNA that we've extracted and figured out how much DNA we have.
You mean like 5 or 6 copies?
We're making millions of copies.
What does DNA have to do with this damn case?
These are those specific areas we're going to focus on. And they're areas on the DNA that we know just repeat over and over again. So we make millions and millions of copies of those. And it's essentially just like you taking a piece of paper and copying it on a copier. Just going to continue to make copies of it.
How do you know when to stop?
There's validations are done. And again, we're targeting a specific amount of DNA. So we know that this amount of DNA takes this long to make this many copies of. And we have set protocols of how we're going to make copies of the DNA.
And the next step is separation?
Yes, this is our final step in the DNA process. So like I said, we just made millions of copies of different areas of those short tandem repeats on the DNA. So now we have to separate them. So we separate them based on size and charge. And at the end of this process, this instrument here will take basically a picture of the DNA, which will be what we use during interpretation. And that picture is basically, you can go to the next slide. It's a bunch of peaks and numbers that we use. And these, can't see it. Those boxes on the top, you see that are in green and yellow, those labeled ones, those are all the specific areas that we made copies of, and those are what we're going to compare. So those peaks and numbers below, that's what we use to make a comparison.
So you sort of overlay on the comparison?
Somewhat, yes.
And so what's next?
So what's next is the interpretation step. I failed to mention that we have kind of two sets of samples when we're doing DNA analysis. We have those evidentiary samples, things that came from the crime scene or from individuals involved in the incident, but we also collect standards from people. Standards, if you've watched any crime show, you've seen somebody take a big Q-tip and run it on the inside of their cheeks. That's a bugle standard. And all that is for us to know what that person's DNA profile is, so we can eventually compare it to our evidentiary samples. So our interpretation step first starts out with ensuring that everything went well. We look at controls that we ran in our sample and make sure that everything performed and had good quality. Once we do that, we're then going to look at each of those DNA profiles, those peaks and heights or peaks and numbers that we just looked at, and start interpreting. And how we interpret it is we basically start describing that profile. So do we have a full, partial, or limited profile? Meaning, do we have data at all of those locations we make copies of, or are we missing data at some places? We also try and determine how many people are present in the sample. A number of evidentiary samples that we work with in forensics have more than one person in them, which is called a mixture. So we determine whether or not it's a single source profile or a mixture, and then how many people are present in there. And then finally, sometimes we can also determine a major and minor contributor. A major contributor is somebody who is showing up more strongly in that profile, and a minor contributor is the opposite, showing up much less in that profile.
Mr. I want to hand you Exhibit 30, and you're talking about getting these profiles. Could you read some of the descriptions of the profiles and explain those to us, based on what you just said?
Yeah, so an example, and we'll look at this in a little bit, an example of an interpretation would be the DNA profile is consistent with a mixture of at least 5 individuals, including at least 1 male. And then we have some that also say the major contributor matches a specific person, and then the minor contributor profile is inconclusive. So that's kind of the terminology that we're using in the reports once we've done this. And the way that we eventually get to is those standards that I just talked about. That is when we're going to be able to say that a match is present. We're going to take that standard of that individual and compare it to that profile that we've already made conclusions on from the item of evidence and see if that person is a contributor. And that's what we call the binary method, because basically we're saying, is this person in this profile or are they not?
Okay, and what is that, does that complete the interpretation process?
Yes, other than documenting it in a report, which is exactly what TBI did.
Okay, and is that where you get to the review process, or?
Yes, sir. Yes. So once a scientist who has done that whole process, done their interpretations, put their conclusions in a report, they're then going to hand off this report, this draft report, to 2 other people. And this is the review process. We have a technical review and an administrative review, and they sound exactly like what they are. Technical, we're going to go through what did we follow our manual and our protocols that we have in the lab? Do I agree with your conclusions, the data that you produced? And then our administrative review is exactly what it sounds like. Did you spell everything correctly? Did you dot all your I's, cross all your T's? All of that good stuff.
So basically, did we ask you to review the review?
Yes, I kind of like to say that what I do is like a super technical review of the case. I go in and look at it again. I try and look at it how I would if I was a technical reviewer, but I'm usually also incorporating other information into it, and that's why I kind of call it a super technical review.
So are we ready now to go into your examination of the evidence you got from TBI?
Yes. So this is going to be pictures from TBI's analysis along with their results, and then and we'll look at this as we go through. So the first exhibit we'll be looking at is exhibit 1A and 1B, and that's Mr. Martin's boots. You can see 1A is the left boot and 1B is right. So like we talked about before, the first thing TBI did was that serology process.
Boots.
They're going to screen it and then try to identify any body fluids on these 2 boots. The body fluid they're focusing on in this case is blood. So how they did that is they used a presumptive test, which is on the slide is TMB&P, which is tetramethylbenzidine and phenolphthalein.
Her testimony is boring. Hey, E. Brooks. Hey, Spark the Grill.
Is that simple? Tell us, what is that?
Yes, so what the analyst did is she was testing these specific areas to try and narrow down where the blood was. So she's focusing on the same areas, and she focused on the same areas for all of the boots that she processed in this case. So you'll see similar areas circled on all of the boots we look at. So she circles these areas because not only did she do the serology, but she took those samples, like we talked about, the trace samples, and they went on to DNA analysis too. So the entirety of the left boot there, 1A, was TMBMP negative, which means it's negative for the presence of blood.
Excuse me.
And then if we can go to the next slide, this is 1B, so the right boot. This area that you can see there that has that blue arrow, that was TMBMP positive. So again, that's a presumptive test for the presence of blood.
Just for the record, the boots we're talking about right now are Emmett Martin's boots, is that correct?
That is correct.
That's exhibit 1.
Yes, yep. So again, all 3 areas on each of these boots were swabbed for DNA analysis and taken into that process. Okay, so we'll have 3 samples per boot that we'll look at eventually with our DNA testing.
Next slide.
Yes, sir. So this next slide is basically the same of what we looked at for Mr. Martin's boots, except these are Mr. Haley's boots. So again, we have 2A is the left boot, 2B is the right boot. We have those areas denoted again that she focused her testing on. And again, we have 3 areas per boot. Again, the left boot tested negative for TMB&P, so it is negative for blood. And then the next slide. The right boot tested positive in that area, presumptively for the presence of blood on Mr. Haley's right boot.
So where'd you go from there?
So what TBI does next is they're going to move into the DNA process. So those samples that they took from those areas of swabbing with their Q-tip, they're going to take a cutting and then go in through our 4 steps that we talked about: extraction, quantitation, amplification, and separation.
And is this the results on the screen now of Martin's boots?
Yes, sir. So after going through that process, we again are going to get those DNA profiles that I showed you of each of those samples that we talked about, those electropherograms that are just peaks and numbers. And these are the interpretations of TBI. So when they sat down and looked at these DNA profiles that they generated from those exhibits, those items and those samples, this is their interpretation.
And what was that interpretation?
So for Mr. Martin's boots, again, looking at the left boot, which was negative for the presence of blood, that area 1 is a mixture of at least 5 individuals, including a male, and it was inconclusive. So typically when we're doing interpretation using that binary method that I talked about, whether or not somebody is included or not included, when you have a mixture of DNA that goes anywhere from 3 to 4 individuals, it becomes very difficult for me as an analyst to try and do any interpretation of that, because it's what we call a nasty mixture. There's just a lot of people, and it's really hard to pull specific profiles out and determine who is really present. So what happens with that is it becomes, we have at least 5 individuals. I know a male is there, but I can't do any more interpretation of it, so it's inconclusive.
In your experience, is it surprising to find a lot of different people's DNA on a boot?
So shoes in general usually produce mixture profiles. If you think about your shoes, you're walking around in your home, anywhere, you're collecting DNA from your family members on your feet, putting it in your shoes and on your shoes if they're sitting around the door. But we also have to take into consideration what these boots are worn. These are police officers' boots that they're wearing out to crime scenes, interactions with a number of individuals every night. So the idea that they have a lot of other people present on their boots is not really odd.
So that number is something you would expect?
Yeah, yes.
And go on with your conclusions on the Martin boots.
Yes, so sample number 2 is a mixture of at least 3 individuals, including a male, and it again is inconclusive. And a sample can also be inconclusive, even though I said it's 3 to 4 people we're really looking at. We can't really start breaking down that mixture. Sometimes you just don't have a lot of DNA, so it's not a really good profile that you can be confident in to make good interpretations on. And then 3, we have a mixture of at least 3 individuals, including a male, and the major is consistent with Mr. Martin, and the minor is inconclusive. So that's, again, like we talked about, we have that major contributor that's showing up more strongly than another individual or any other individuals present in it. And it's Mr. Martin, which we expect Mr. Martin to be on his own shoes.
And what about the right boot?
So the right boot, for sample 1, we have a mixture of at least 2 individuals, including a male, that's inconclusive. And then for 2 and 3, we have the same results. We have a mixture of at least 2 individuals, including a male, and the major matches Mr. Tyree Nichols, and the minor is inconclusive. That's for sample 2 and 3. And if you remember back to our serology results, that 3rd sample on that boot tested presumptively positive for blood.
And so that's all the conclusions on Mr. Martin's boots?
Correct, yes.
So let's go to Mr. Hayes.
So again, it's going to look almost the exact same. Left boot, we know, is presumptively negative for the presence of blood. On sample 1, we have a mixture of at least 7 individuals, including a male. That is inconclusive. On 2, we have a mixture of at least 4 individuals, including a male. The major is consistent with Mr. Haley, which once again, it's his boots. Minor is inconclusive. And the third sample is a mixture of at least 3 individuals, including a male, and that again is inconclusive.
So what did you draw from this analysis of Haley's boots?
So at this point, we don't have a lot of information. We just know that Mr. Haley is present on his boots. So once we get to the right boot, though, the first sample is at least 6 individuals, including a male, and again, is inconclusive. Sample 2, we have a mixture of at least 3 individuals, including a male, and then the major matches an unknown male. And what we mean by an unknown male is that all the standards that we used in the case that we compared the evidence to, that profile doesn't match anybody. So it's
What
an
it do,
unknown person
Chef?
that we don't know who it is. Okay. And then the third sample, which again, it tested presumptively positive for the presence of blood during our serology testing. It was a mixture of at least 4 individuals, including a male, and it was also inconclusive.
So where do we go from there?
So based on these results, and after I looked at them, I decided that we could possibly employ a relatively newer technique within the field of forensic biology, but not new in the world of science, and it's called probabilistic genotyping. And the main point of probabilistic genotyping is to help deconvolute or demix these nasty mixtures. So it's going to use science and a computer to do this instead of me as an analyst doing it.
How common is the use of this probabilistic genotyping?
So it's becoming much more common in the last couple of years.
I'm still trying to figure out what the
Companies
purpose
out
of a
there that
DNA
have
expert
software.
is on
The
this
one that we
damn
use, it's called
particular
Cybergenetics.
case.
The software itself is called Tyree.
They boring me. Oklahoma
They
City
have the
keep
software,
hitting too many
they work the
threes.
software.
So are those companies like the Pepsi and Coke, this type of
Yeah, so that would be the Pepsi. The Coke version would be what's called StarMix, and you can actually purchase StarMix and bring it into your lab and use it yourself. So more and more labs are starting to bring probabilistic genotyping online within their own
Is
labs.
that pretty expensive?
Yes, it's very expensive.
So which one did you use?
I use the Trulio from Cybergenetics.
And is this sort of a form of artificial intelligence?
No, it's using math for the most part. So what it's using from the TBI, I sent the data files that produce that DNA picture, that electropherogram. Those data files were sent to Cybergenetics. So they use all the data within those data files to do their interpretation. So their software uses statistics, biological modeling to use all of the data and to make more of an interpretation or to be able to better deconvolute and unmix those profiles.
Does the FBI use this type of
Yes.
software, I guess?
Yes. The FBI, I think, has brought on StarMix, so the Coke version of this rather than the Pepsi. Again, that can be brought into your lab, but Trulio has been used in a number of states and a number of cases to give more information, including in the state of Tennessee.
And how many times did you use this in the past?
I believe this is my first time using it for a case. I have done training through them, and I've also done training through StarMix, so I'm very familiar with this type of procedure in this software.
And how did you decide to use it in this case?
So because we were focusing on Mr. Haley's boots, what we decided was that we were going to take the data produced by TBI from all 12 samples, right, 3 from each boot, and send that off to Cybergenetics or Trulio for them to use in their software.
And next slide.
Yes, sir. So what Trulio did was they did a preliminary screening test, and that's what these results show on this PowerPoint. So it's basically just a table up there, and if we just explain the table a little bit, we have all of our item numbers. So we see we have 2A is our left boot, 2B is our right boot. We have 1, 2, 3 samples for each one. We then have the comparison to Mr. Haley's standard, and we have the comparison to Mr. Nichols' standard. And then they also, because we had that unknown male that was on the boot, that was also used as a standard in this case as well. Down at the bottom, we have a table that represents kind of what these numbers that you'll see in the table. So remember when we were talking about interpretation, we are either including someone or saying it's a match, or we're saying it's not a match and they could be excluded. So that's what these numbers are representing. These numbers are actually the number of zeros given within the probabilistic statistics that they produce. If there's the blank over on the right-hand side, as you can see, blank means no statistical support. So if we look at
objection, relevance.
In most areas, we have strong support for him being present on his boot. Again, he should be present on his food. That's not surprising, right? So next, the comparison is to Mr. Nichols. So we have on sample A2, we have a 1, which is inclusionary. On B2, we needed more testing. Trulio stated they needed more testing, so no determination was really put there. And then on B3, it was inclusionary and 9 zeros on there. So moving closer to that stronger support we have for that inclusion.
So what does inclusionary mean?
So inclusion means that the software is telling us that that person's DNA is present in that mixture sample.
And this looks like some sort of probabilistic graph. What is this?
So this is what comes with the Trulio. It's basically, I made this into hopefully a more understandable, the line graph that was on the bottom there. That's all that is just that converted to the line graph that I put on there was hopefully a little bit more understandable.
So once you got that down, did you make another graph?
Yes, I did. So what I did is that we wanted to look at all of the results we have using TDI's serology results, their quantitation results, the DNA interpretation, and then incorporate that true allele results that we got from this. So we're going to compare Mr. Martin's right boot, you have 1B up there, to Mr. Haley's right boot. And again, you remember those samples are generally in the same area. And for both samples 3, they were positive, or presumptively positive for the presence of blood, okay? So that third column there is our quantitation value. So that again is telling us how much DNA was present in that sample from that item of evidence. So the unit of measurement is not really important, it's nanograms, but not really something important. We can just look at the numbers here. So if we're looking at, we'll focus on the third sample of each boot. We have a total of 2.76266 nanograms of DNA that was taken from that item of evidence.
That would have been Mr. Martin's boot.
Correct. Now, not only are we looking at this quantitation value, but we're looking at the DNA results. So the DNA results showed us that there was 2 people present in this sample. So because that's the total amount of DNA, we can kind of divide this quantitation value by our number of contributors. So we take that 2.76 and divide it by 2, and we have a general idea of how much DNA each person in this mixture is contributing, okay? So then we move down to Mr. Haley's sample 3 that again was presumptively positive for the presence of blood. We have a total amount of DNA that's 0.22681, and that amount of DNA is
These folks broke out in
We
math.
have to take that value and divide it by 4. So we have much less DNA.
This is much too
in general,
complicated.
but we also, because we have more people involved, each person is giving less DNA.
So with Martin's on this, you would take that 2.76 and cut it in half for Martin's value.
Yes, generally, yes.
And then on Haley's value in yellow, you would take that number, 0.22681, and divide it by 4.
That is correct, yes, to get a general idea of how much DNA each individual in the mixture is giving to that sample.
And were you able to reach any conclusions based upon this graph?
So again, taking into the totality of the results that we're looking at, serology results, quantitation results, interpretation results, and true allele results. We have a limited amount of blood on really both samples, but once we start looking at the quantitation results, we see that 2.76 is looking to be more consistent with a sample that is blood. And that's based on my time working cases, looking at DNA samples from what I know is blood. And then we also, again, incorporate those DNA results looking at the number of contributors, okay? We also see, we have to start also incorporating, the other information I was given. So the videos I was provided was both the body-worn camera footage of officers and the skycop video footage. And then also looking at the medical examiner's documentation saying that there was blunt force trauma to the torso as well as the head.
So did these findings correlate, in your opinion, with the what you saw in the video?
Yes, they did. So for the most part, what I was looking at is potentially where could Mr. Haley have struck Mr. Nichols? And looking at the DNA results, we see mostly with that quantitation result, because it's such a smaller amount, 12 times smaller than what we have from Mr. Martin, that is not necessarily consistent with what I would expect a blood sample to provide, okay? So again, we're only looking at a presumptively positive blood test. There are other body fluids that can contain blood, such as saliva, sweat, especially depending on what activities you have been involved in. So looking at those results, it's not clear that it is definitely blood from that sample. It could also be transfer from, say, epithelial cells or your skin
What
cells.
is epithelial? That's skin cells?
Yes, that's skin cells, and you have epithelial cells all over your body, and you would expect them to be, even on your clothing, of course, on your skin as well.
And the vast, the 12 times more DNA present on the Martin boot. What do you make of that?
So again, because of that amount of DNA that we have, it is more consistent with being blood. Again, we do have that presumptive test. We don't have any confirmatory tests. But again, the main point of doing serology is to try and identify that body fluid because we know those body fluids have a good amount of DNA. 2.7.
They putting the jurors to sleep.
6 is a good amount of DNA that I would be confident I'm going to get a good informative profile as I was going through my process.
So as between these two contributors, Mr. Haley and Mr. Martin, what is more likely?
Oh, and in other news, Tiffany officially out. Jason and them got sworn in today.
Occurred on the scene based on the DNA analysis.
And she lost immediately
I
in the
think
supervisor
that based
role.
on DNA analysis, it provides information on the strike that Mr. Haley made was not necessarily to an area that had blood on it. So this could have been his torso, it could have been his clothing, it could have been something of that area.
Mr. Martin?
That again, because it being that high amount of DNA, it is a major contributor of Mr. Nichols that is more consistent with blood. So it would be in an area where blood was present, such as his face.
Have your opinions today been within a reasonable degree of certainty within your field?
It's based on my expert experience and opinion, yes.
During at this point, I would like to mark as exhibit the graph.
Well, yeah, there'll be some food boxes still. They just won't have her name on it or Jason's name. Well, actually, the food boxes came from the township. So, yeah, they definitely won't have her name on it. I don't think he's going to have a whole bunch of billboards and flyers and stuff with his name on it either. She did all that making herself visible to get her ass whooped in both elections.
Good morning, Dr. Spencer.
I'm not a doctor. It's okay. Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. I'm actually an expert in probabilistic genotypes.
Awesome. I was
Starting
going to say, that's very exciting.
to sound delicious.
Doesn't it? It sounds like a cereal, I think.
I do just want to quickly recap some stuff. So looking at this from a broad perspective here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. A good amount of DNA, which is probably blood of Tyree Nichols, found on Emmett Martin's right boot.
That is correct.
And before, I think I know the answer to this. On your presentation, you had like a little arrow that pointed to a section of the boot.
Correct.
And that's not pointing to a particular spot. That's a picture of a section.
Yes, sir. Yes. So the TBI analyst wasn't able to really narrow down a specific stain on it. You have to think about it's a black boot. That's really hard to find blood on. Blood we like to describe as a reddish brown stain, and that's just difficult to see on black material. So she sampled that area, and that was the general area. And she would sample that whole area for processing. Yes.
And the blue spot doesn't mean that's a spot.
No, sir. No. Yes. Yes.
So a good amount of Tyree Nichols on Emmett Martin's right foot.
Yes.
Right boot.
Right boot. Yes, based on the quantitation results. Yes, sir.
And then we looked at Officer Haley, Lieutenant Haley's boots.
Yes, sir.
And we have found an amount of Tyree Nichols' DNA into a probable, dealing properties
Yes.
on Lieutenant Haley's right boot.
That is correct. Yes.
And so we have Tyree Nichols' DNA on both and on Haley's right boot.
That is correct. Yes.
Which is consistent with Martin, who had kicked Mr. Nichols.
Yes, it could be. That could have been a reason why blood was on it. Yes.
And it's consistent with Haley's boot making contact with Mr. Nichols.
That is correct. Yes.
But we found more DNA on Martin's boot than we did Haley's boot,
That is correct. Yes.
which means probably we got more of Tyree's blood on Martin's boot than we do on Haley's boot.
Yes, that is also possible, yes.
And we talked about Mr. Haven's kick to Mr. Nichols, correct?
Somewhat, yes, yeah. Yeah. I'm sure you guys have, yes.
Yes, a little bit.
Yes.
You reviewed the Skycop footage.
Yes, I did.
And you reviewed some body on camera footage.
Yes, I did.
I just want to make sure that we can play the whole camera footage from the screen. This just looks like a together.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I know that you were there. I don't like that.
Yes.
I want to cue that up. In fact, you've worked together previously.
Yes.
It was before this case.
Yes, before this case, yes.
Sorry, just if you just fast forward to where the camera switches over.
I'll call your attention to this color box in the video.
Yes, sir.
This is the cascade video.
Not the video again. I'm sick of this damn video. And the body cams and the EMTs and the.
Just go, please play the story. Just play the story. See this thing. Or maybe 30 seconds. Here we go. We're starting the video at 20:32.
Yes, sir. Yes, thank you.
Oh. Excuse me. Good grief. Eliminate technical difficulties. They ain't sent the whole courtroom up there to fix it.
So there. I'll tell you this, Officer Martin, that just kicked Mr. Nichols in the head. Is that consistent with your knowledge of it?
Yes, it is. Yes.
And is that type of strike that may result in the transfer of DNA from Mr. Nichols' head to Mr. Martin's?
Yes.
You can't specify which, but it's that type of contact that could result in that.
Yeah, yes, yes.
So Mr. Martin taking the head, is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
And tell you again, sort of thing that we transfer Mr. Nichols' DNA to Mr. Martin's.
That is correct.
Shit!
Yes.
Candace
has more DNA of Mr. Nichols on it.
Correct.
That it's more likely that his boot contacted an area of Mr. Nichols that had blood.
Yes.
And we see it for itself, it kicks him in the head.
Yes.
But from looking at Mr. Haley's boot, since it has less of Tyree Nichols' DNA, it's hard to ascertain the area in which Mr. Haley actually kicked Mr. Nichols.
Yes, that is true.
Could be I would assume kicking somebody, tell me if I'm right or wrong, kicking somebody through the foot could result in transfer of DNA no matter where you kick that person.
Yes, that's true. Because again, as we talked about, your DNA is all over your body and on your clothes. So especially if you're kicking exposed skin or even clothing, it's probably going to transfer that. Those cells are going to transfer to that shoe.
And so all we can really talk about is probabilities or whatever. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And even a closer view of the video doesn't really answer that for us. You can play
lace the sponge.
I'm skipping through that 'cause I don't know what the
I mean,
hell.
I've not reviewed that video before, but yeah, you can't tell from that video, but yes.
Well, we can tell from DNA and from the videos are that Officer Martin kicked Mr. Nichols at least 3 times.
Correct.
And Defendant Haley kicked Mr. Nichols while he was on the ground at least 1 time.
That's correct.
No further questions.
Anything else from the defense?
Ms. Spencer, as a DNA analyst, do you have anything that you can opine on other than probability?
No, again, my job is to look at the DNA results and provide information to attorneys and juries. And that's, I use probabilistics within that, or statistics, I'm sorry, within that.
And would you categorize the items that you use to come to your conclusion as objective evidence?
Yes, I would say yes.
As opposed to subject, correct?
Correct, yes.
I believe that's all I have.
Anything else with this witness? You're all questions.
I believe we're going to take a witness out of order. Justice Smith's going to provide a witness. You may have a moment, so we avoid technological problems. I guess no.
I'm gonna ask for a minute. They really gave him 1 minute.
So you tell me where our testimony you get today will be the truth and what the truth what you got.
We do.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Before you start your question, can I have the attorney?
What the hell they mute the mic for today?
All right, sir, could you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Yes, it's Jared Zwicky. That's Jared. Last name is Zwickey.
Your Honor, may the deputy pass the document that has been shown to the district attorney. Sir, is that a copy of your professional resume?
Yes, sir, it is.
I'd like that marked next, Your Honor, with your permission, the next sequentially marked exhibit.
So you can pay your resume, somebody has 36.
Sir, we're going to briefly go over your experience, training, and education. We're going to give, that's not important, but we're going to give, for lack of a better word, the footnote version, all right?
Yes, sir.
Since you're not shy about these things, how old are you?
I'll be 81 this year.
I say that only because I hope I said it. How long have you been in law enforcement?
I served 38 years in law enforcement.
And have you been a chief of police before?
Yes, I have in 2 organizations.
All right. Have you attended college training put on by different law enforcement organizations in order to become proficient in your chosen field of expertise?
Yes, I have.
Have you also provided training to different law enforcement organizations, again, in those same fields of your expertise that we'll be talking about more of?
I have, yes.
Have you trained, for example, the FBI?
I have.
Have you trained the Secret Service?
I have.
Have you trained the Los Angeles Police Department?
Some members of the Los Angeles Police Department, yes.
And having gotten to know you for a number of years, you've trained officers and police departments across the country from the Northeast all the way down to Texas, California, in areas of deadly force. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Defensive tactics.
Yes.
By the way, give us a thumbnail version of what is defensive tactics.
Well, defensive tactics, actually, it's a misnomer. It's defensive tactics plus arrest control techniques. It's the ability to teach people how to arrest somebody and get them under control And the other part of that, the defense, is defense of yourself and others with either weapons or with your hands.
And do you carry a number of relates to martial arts and fighting skills?
I do. I have been fortunate enough to acquire 3 black belts in 3 different systems. One would be a Chinese system. The second one would be modern arnis, which came from the Philippines, which is double stick fighting or with sticks or with machetes. And with Bajak karate came out of the South Koreans. It's a dagger set teaching you defense with 2 daggers. They all pretty much intertwine. And then along with some Aikido training that I first studied back
What in the hell does
1964, 1965 with Los Angeles police instructor who was an Aikido expert as well.
They is reaching with some of these witnesses, and they experts.
Yes, sir, I practice every day.
Every morning, I wait till you're done before I call you. Is that right?
Absolutely, sir.
All right. Now, you not only have you been a police chief, but have you also been a SWAT team member?
Yes, I have. Actually, I worked on the SWAT team for over 20 years.
And have you been a SWAT team commander?
I have been, yes.
Did you, let me back up a bit. Have you been qualified as an expert in the field of defensive tactics, human factors, arrest techniques in state courts across the country?
I have, yes.
Have you been qualified as an expert to testify, give opinions in the areas of body cam and pole cam videos in order to render opinions regarding the appropriate level of force that a respective officer or officers have administered?
Yes.
Do you have an estimate on how many times you've been qualified to testify in live court as an expert in those areas?
Well, that's pretty hard to give you an exact figure.
That's
I'm just going to estimate probably over 90 times.
I can't handle the truth.
How many federal courts have you been so qualified to testify as an expert?
Once again, I think that's a little hard to go back over 50 years, but I would say probably at least a quarter or more of those cases that I testified in over the years.
And have you been qualified in the Sixth Circuit, which includes Tennessee, in the U.S. federal court as an expert in those areas?
Yes, sir, I did.
And briefly, tell us what is known in the area of court testimony, court expert testimony, as a friend of the court. What is a friend of the court?
Well, my understanding of friend of the court was or is when an individual has a certain expertise, is asked by the court to offer the court an opinion. Basically, like my field would have been use of force.
Have you been asked to serve as a friend of the court by the courts, to serve as a friend of the court, to actually provide them expert opinions in federal court?
I have, and I believe it was 1987 in the San Francisco federal court regarding major issues that we were having with the war protesters at the Concord Naval Weapons Station.
And that had to do, if I remember correctly, I don't mean to lead you, but having examined you before, that had to do with active resistance and passive resistance. Is that right?
Yes, I was helping the court to understand what the ground rules were going to be for what is a passive, what is an active resistant, and what level of force any of us in the law enforcement community could use when we were making arrests.
All right. Now, being police chief and all those other things, have you also served on what is called the post commission?
Yes, I have.
And the post commission, give a layman's definition of what the post commission is for the jury.
The post commission basically sets the standards for training for law enforcement officers throughout the state of California. There's about 40, I think at the time, 43 different academies throughout the state, some at universities, some at law enforcement agencies. And there are about 43 different categories of instruction. And the state of California through post then make sure that every one of those categories of instruction are certified and that people who are teaching those domains, learning domains, are qualified to teach it.
And you served in that capacity for how long?
Well, let's see, from 1997 to about 2011, I was the academy director at one of the university or junior college. And we had the post committee, so I had to serve during that time as a subject matter expert for use of force, firearms. And then we also participated in developing not only a curriculum for those, but also for role-playing exercises and computer training for the academy students as well.
And have you, number one, testified as an expert in the area of what is referred to within your industry as human factors?
I have.
What is the layman's definition of the analysis of human factors?
Well, basically, there are some real basic factors such as what we refer to as tunnel vision. The second thing is auditory exclusion, what you hear and what you feel, and then there are environmental factors. And every one of those factors are looked at in all aspects of law enforcement investigations, whether it be traffic accidents, whether it be plane crashes, whether it be fatal accidents, where we have to reconstruct maybe what the driver saw or how the driver reacted, were they under the influence, to basic mechanical defects of the vehicle. So we're looking at all the factors plus environmental, what were the lighting conditions at the time of a particular incident, and what type of an incident was it? Because that type of an incident really dictates what kind of an emotional response that the individual officer, a suspect, and witnesses will go through when they're involved in those kind of encounters.
Have you performed and exercised that expertise, first level, or first option, as an investigator of an incident? In other words, where you come on to investigate and conclude what happened in an incident?
Yes, you have to.
And have you also used that training, skill, experience, and education in giving expert opinions to law enforcement agencies or the courts in areas of human factors?
I have, as well as individual officers to not only experienced officers, but new officers coming into the business, to let them know basically that an arrest situation is not only a physical one, but it's a mental one as well. And they have to go through those steps of things like anger. How do you control anger? And how do you control excitement? If you're involved in a possible shooting situation, how are you going to stop that rapid breathing? So we try to not really inoculate an officer to those things, but to just make them aware and try to give them some techniques how to reduce that level of stress that they're going to be going through.
And if you've been asked by the FBI to give this type of training, or inoculation as you call it, have you been asked by the FBI to provide that type of human factors training and advice to their own FBI agents?
Yeah, not directly. I didn't have to go to the academy to do that, but through our training, every training that I give, whether it be hands-on training with a defensive technique, how to defend yourself, whether it's a baton, which is the training I gave to the HRT, which is a hostage rescue team out of San Francisco. They're training with a baton because nobody had taught them that.
So the record is clear. The hostage rescue team out of San Francisco for what agency?
For the FBI.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello.
What's up? What's up?
Nah, just chilling.
Things that they have to be careful of as well, and part of that is the emotional control of your anger when you're striking somebody. You have to keep things in reference.
Were you finished?
Yes.
Okay. Now, it seems like you have a lot of irons in the fire. And here you are testifying on behalf of Justin Smith. Are you paid for your time to provide expert consultation and advice and testimony?
I am just like every other expert. Attorneys that are here today, yes, I do get paid for my services.
Okay. Of all the courts that we've talked about, of all the agencies we've talked about, or you've talked about, have you ever been declined or denied or refused by any court in this country, federal or state, to testify as an expert in the areas you've listed?
No, sir, right now.
I'm going to tender this witness as an expert on behalf of Justin Smith in the areas listed thus far in the record, John. I knew you would do something. We talked about a whole bunch of expertise. That's duly short. Defense tactics, human factors, deadly force, police training, police officer training, investigations of critical incidents. And if I left one act on, I might have to come back and get a mullet.
Any objection to those classifications? All right, so show ladies tender.
Now, by the way, did I list the appropriate areas for this case that you're testifying for?
I think so, with maybe one exception, it's all of the digital analysis.
See, tell us what background you have as it relates to digital and video analysis and when you used it, sir.
Thank you. Actually, when I first started in 1974 with training and for investigations of critical incidents, the only readily available digital type of information was surveillance cameras. And it wasn't until 2012, actually, when the body camera was first introduced in California and was starting to be used by law enforcement. So that was my first encounter. It started out with some civilian use of surveillance cameras. And it involved, if I might just explain briefly, a shooting incident by an Anchorage police officer who was parked in a parking lot, happened to see a gentleman come out with a rifle, and he was pointing it at several individuals nearby. And he feared for their life and took a shot at the individual, missed him, and the whole controversy was, why did the officer act so recklessly? And when I looked at the surveillance camera, I found that it didn't show anything of these people off to the right-hand side where the officer was. And then I later learned that it was only 1 frame every second. And if that filling rate was 1 frame per second, there was all those other frames missing. And I had to call in an expert from the company to clarify that.
Let me, thank you. You know, when we were kids and we take the edge of a book and we draw a picture of a guy about to jump his bicycle over a ramp, and then on the next page, we move that bicycle up a little bit more, and then the next page, you do a little bit more. You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely, yeah.
Everybody over the age of 65 knows what I'm talking about. And then you flip the pages, and it makes like a little Disney stick card, doesn't it?
That's correct.
In between each one of those pages is what you're talking about, the frame rate. Is that right?
That's right, referred to as frame rate.
Okay, so what are the drawbacks, for lack of a better word, deficiencies in today's modern pole cams like we have in this case?
Right. Well, I think I basically answered that question. One way is because in that earlier shooting, there was only 1 frame per second, so other things were missed.
Are you familiar with the frames per second rate of the Tennessee, Memphis Police Department pole cams in operation?
I am. I'm not sure exactly what the initial frame rate was when it was filmed, but when it eventually goes to a central receiving and is processed and digitized, because it's frequency. It's not like a camera that immediately is recorded here. It has to be transmitted over a long distance. That frame rate may have been 16 frames per second, but by the time it's produced, it's 8 frames per second, which was what the SkyCap camera was at the time of this incident.
Good. Now, because it may have started out or had the capability of 16 frames per second, but because it's transmitting that images over radio frequency back to headquarters, your research discovered that it was being dropped to about 8 frames per second.
That's correct.
And then body-worn cameras, Axon body-worn cameras issued to the police officers. What frame rate are they?
They're 30 frames per second.
That's 30 frames per second, right?
That's correct.
Now, even I can figure out that is a clearer or more precise measurement, is that right, or film taking?
Well, it's even above what they call the national standard. National standard is 24. This camera will run anywhere from 24 to 30 and be reduced. But 24 is the standard. 30 makes it really smooth and clear and easy for everybody to see.
Now, you told us what the drawback is of pole cams, and that is clarity. By the way, is focus also a problem with pole cams?
Focus, and the other fact is it's so far away. If you've got like in the pole cam, it is what they call PT. It's a pan and tilt. It only has so much focus that you can make, and then the quality of it at that distance diminishes. And with a light sensor in the camera, you get more of a darker, grainy type of a picture that you're looking at. Is what we've been looking at here.
But the best we got in this case, but I was asking you, the body-worn camera is much better. Is that right?
It is much better, yes.
But there are drawbacks to the use of body-worn cameras, aren't there?
There is, not only body-worn cameras, but as well as the surveillance.
Yeah, we've already talked about surveillance.
Yes.
I'm moving on to body-worn cameras. Body-worn camera, just give me the 6 or 7 highest efficiencies of the body-worn cameras that's utilized by the Memphis Police Department.
Best way to describe it is the fact that the body camera is normally kept here on the chest. And whenever we look at whatever the image is being projected, we make an assumption, sometimes falsely, that the officer is looking exactly where this is. Anywhere where I turn, that camera will be looking at you, but I may be looking over here at the council. Okay. It doesn't help the officer feel a suspect's hand. You won't see if there's any tension that the officer feels when he grabs the suspect's hand. That's not recorded on here. You'll see the hand, and you'll see the officer holding that hand, but you'll never feel the resistance through a camera. Those are some real basic things. And lastly, if I may, is because the body camera is attached to the officer, whenever there is a disturbance fight and I'm trying to turn and grab a suspect, what you get is a blurred image. And then you're really not going to see what happened. And the last thing is, if the movement of this camera for an individual that somebody is dealing with is faster than a third of a second, again, third of a second, that may be like 10 frames of what this is recording, you'll never see it. And there's only one way to see it. You have to slow it down to a 1 frame per second interval in order for us to see what that image was.
And you've been here all week listening to the testimony, have you not?
I have, yes.
And Officer Nichols was called to the stand, and based upon his testimony initially, saying that when he came up on Bean and Smith, those two fellas, it looked like they were throwing punches or whatever. And then Mr. Perry cross-examined and slowed.
What the hell is up with the feedback?
You hear that they did not hit him in the face and head. They were hitting his wrist and hands. Were you there for that?
I was, yes.
But your computer program, or what I call a computer program, your player program actually breaks each frame down into 1/60th. Is that correct?
Partially. It's actually, I do have a software that allows me to take a recording like that image and slow it down to 1/30th of a second. If my camera is at 1/30th, I can slow it down to 1/30th. If the camera is at 24 frames, it will slow it down to 24 frames. If it's 8 frames, the software will slow it down to 8 frames per second. So across that spectrum.
Right, I use big numbers.
The court mic's got terrible feedback today. They always got something going on.
They never made contact with the face or head.
Oh, clearly, yes.
As it relates to slapping at the hands, as you saw in that video, is that a defensive tactic?
Oh, well, it is if I'm trying to reach somebody's hands to get them out of the way so I can grab it. Yes.
What is a distraction slap?
It could be a variety of things. It could be to any part of the body. It could be close up to the face. I may not ever have to touch your face. It's just flip up towards your eyes and I can distract you for a moment. That's a distraction, suspect, right.
And does it not also trigger the reaction of the suspect? If their hands are down here and you do a distraction slap, does it sometimes bring their hands up to guard their face?
Oh, absolutely.
Is that what you saw in the video with Tyree Nichols?
Yes, it was.
Is that what your conclusion is as an expert as it relates to what Bean and Smith were doing over Nichols trying to get his hands?
Based on my experience and training, absolutely.
All right, now, more administrative, I'll call it administrative. As part of your working for Mr. Smith, have you reviewed all of the Memphis Police Department training that Mr. Smith received at the Memphis Police Department Academy?
I have, yes.
And unless you have an objection to it, or unless you have a problem with it, was the training that Justin Smith received, did it meet the standards nationally of law enforcement training?
That's a difficult question because on paper it does look like the standards of post within the state of Tennessee were met. But whether or not they actually performed all those, I wasn't present during all of those training sessions. I couldn't give you that kind of an answer.
All right. Bear with me. Learn what I'm doing.
Bear with the damn microphone.
Judge, I just want to make sure that I get only that, and so here, so everyone can be patient with me for a moment. Right now, I'm muted. I'm not projecting it. I'm just getting it to the right spot. And you guys. Judge, I am paused, ready to be, and it's unmuted at 100%. So I'm going to do what I've been told by Miss Rebecca to project it.
proceed then. This is your, receipts. I'm gonna get it with Mr. Justice Smith. All right, before I hit play, you reviewed what is commonly referred to as the Memphis Police Department Training Academy as the Bad Bob video. Is that right?
I did, yes.
And in order to set some groundwork, the officers are sprayed with one shot of OC spray in one eye, which the eyelid is closed when they're shot with the shot. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And the other eye is covered, they call it a tactical L, that keeps it even off the eyelid. Is that right?
Yes.
And do you recognize the person that's in that video that I'm about to play?
Yes, I do.
Who is it?
Justin Smith.
All right, I'm going to hit play and let it proceed through, okay? It's only, what did I say, 2 minutes? John?
This is starting at, for the record, this is starting at 25 seconds. Sorry, excuse me, 25, 24.
Yes, 25, 24, and we were going to go through 2806.
Yeah, good. Good, sir. All right, back well. Sir, you back well. Good job, hold your breath. Hold it. Control yourself, take a breath, open your eyes. Don't like shit!
Maintain your composure, maintain your composure.
You gotta control yourself. What is your name? Justin Smith, sir. Drop me in. 1, 3. Where are you from? Arkansas. Who's the commander of this police department training academy? Commander, sir. Who's the commander of this police department training academy? Commander. Lieutenant, I don't know, sir. You're not the commander of this police department training academy? Lieutenant Colonel Lincoln Rudolph. Rudolph, sir. How many fingers falls up? Casey, sir. Open your eyes. You gotta look. Don't look. I'm gonna spray you in the face. No, sir. Smith, get it together. Control yourself. And Burns, that's it. Breathe. Open your eyes. How many fingers fall up? Don't bite. Look, 6. That's 6. Look.
Control yourself.
They're showing him getting pepper sprayed.
Yes, sir. Look at it. Don't bite. Don't bite that ball. Open your eyes. You can see. Don't walk on the flat, man. Grab behind the dick.
That
All right. I'm going to minimize this. All right, minimize it somehow. All right. You watched that training?
I did.
You watched that training before?
I have.
You got to know Justin Smith as part of me, like over hiring you. Is that right?
I'm sorry, get your last part?
You got to know Justin Smith, did you not?
Yes, sir, I have.
Was he out of control there with one shot of OC in his face?
Oh, absolutely.
It was amongst friendly people, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
That experience, the OC spray, is that similar to what Justin Smith experienced at Bear Creek and Castlegate?
No.
I know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Let's do another way.
Yes.
The effects, the physiological effects of only one shot of OC spray in one eye, was that a much less troublesome or harmful series of events?
Oh, absolutely.
How so?
Well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he had at least 3 exposures to the face.
When?
During the struggle with
Mr. Nichols.
Mr. Nichols, that's correct.
So he had 3 experiences with OC spray there at Bear Creek and Castlegate.
That's correct.
With a subject who had or had not been searched for weapons.
Your Honor, basis knowledge.
You just lay foundation as far as what you would know from the video.
But I'm not going to link the video. If you review the investigation of the Memphis Police Department and the Tennessee Bureau of Investigations, as well as the FBI and the Department of Justice, are linked to each and every act of Justin Smith and Tyree Nichols on January 7th.
Yes, I am.
So are you familiar with those facts?
Yes, I am.
So how many times did Justin Smith get shot in the eye with pepper spray?
At least 3 times on the scene.
And was Tyree Nichols ever searched during the entire process?
No, he was not. That I could see. Or no?
Did you see documentation that he'd been searched?
Absolutely none.
And you've heard sworn testimony that he was never searched, right?
I have, yes.
So do you have any reason to believe that Tyree Nichols was searched?
Not at all.
Until a suspect is in handcuffs and searched for weapons, is the scene secure?
No, it's not.
What Justice Smith dealt with at Barricade and Castlegate, was that an unsecure, dangerous scene?
Absolutely it was.
Does Justice Smith wear glasses to your knowledge?
Yes.
Let's go to the
Take your time, why don't
Did you
you?
review the Memphis Police Department use of force policy as well as the force continuum?
I have, yes.
Now, I'm going to show you just a cover page.
Okay.
I'm an officer of the court, sworn to not mislead the court. You've reviewed the Memphis Police Department use of force policy, is that right?
I have many times.
It's been provided to us in discovery.
Yes.
I would ask that be the next sequentially numbered exhibit. That Your Honor will take care of. You're not. I thought we had this policy. I was told earlier it had not been admitted yet, so maybe I misheard. I'm sorry. Okay, let's move on. It sounds like it's already in evidence. The jury will later be able to see it. Back to what I was saying, I would like the Memphis Police Department use of force policy as well as the force continuum is moved into evidence as an exhibit. It's going to have to be late filed so we can print it off on 8.5 file. Marker. Yes, sir. 37. Yes. There's the 13 pages, John. I'm going to go now to a video, and I'm going to get paused so that we don't accidentally do anything, okay? Have you watched all of the body-worn camera and all of the poll cam videos provided by the state of Tennessee, the Department of Justice, to us in discovery?
I have, yes.
And one of those includes the Chris Wilson body-worn camera. Does that ring a bell for you?
Yes.
All right. This is one of the videos that we just put in with now proceedings. This video I have marked here is 8 minutes, 51 seconds. Sir, at times I will stop during this video to ask you a question, okay?
Yes.
Want to do the lights, Judge? Can you see from where you are, Mr. Sweet?
I can.
Do you see Justin Smith in that video?
I do, on the far right-hand side.
And Justin Smith, for his tactical bulletproof vest, has 2 reflective strips on his ribcage. Is that right?
That's correct.
Justin Smith also had white bottom tennis shoes on. Is that right?
That's correct.
And before this scene depicted, what did Justin Smith have on his head?
He had a ball cap.
Like a baseball hat?
That's correct.
Did he have glasses on before this?
He had glasses as well, yes.
All right, I'm going to get play. You're familiar with Justin Smith's voice, aren't you?
I am.
And Justin Smith, when you're young.
From the video.
Are you familiar?
To bring down for Mr. Nichols. It was Smith. Justice Smith.
I see him. When you turn around, if you don't face, I say,
What the fuck we looking for in the body
Stocky fell
cam?
on the left side. Stocky fell on the left side frame. Who is that?
It looks like Officer Mills.
And I'll try not to pause again, but in your review of this, you got to learn what Lieutenant Dwayne Smith looked like too, right?
I think I know what he looks like.
Start again. Have you also come to recognize the white fellow with the American flag on his left shoulder as Robert Long from Memphis Fire Department?
Yes.
Starting again at 2041:11.
Just call him a white boy, why don't you?
Since we're doing it for everybody else, you see the guy with the beanie on his head. He's got his left thumb underneath his bulletproof vest. Do you recognize that to be Darius B?
Yes.
By the way, how many active critical scenes, fatality shootings have you been to in your career in law enforcement?
Well, I'd be lying if I told you I knew exactly how many, but quite a few.
More than 100?
Absolutely.
Do you know the term what hot wash means?
No.
Adrenaline dump?
Oh, yes.
As you see these officers interacting with everybody in a, I don't know, a weird kind of vibe, they're talking, is that something you would expect to find at a critical incident at the conclusion of it?
Yes, I've heard it many times. It's a release from all the tension that they've gone through.
Your Honor, I was just asked that Mr. Zimon remember his witness is leading quite a bit.
Rephrase the question. I'm responding, I'm not, but I'll continue. I'll do it right, but then long enough, I can figure it out. You've seen Mr. Smith in this video, is that right?
Yes.
That last statement made by that last voice first, do you recognize the voice that was just heard?
Yes, Justice Smith.
And did you hear what he asked? I'll be glad to replay it for you again if you'd like.
Would you please?
All right. I don't want to leave. You don't want to just take a long speech. Okay?
Yes.
Did you hear that?
No, sir, I'm sorry. I can't make that up.
You need to move closer.
Damn.
I can try.
Did you hear that Mr. Smith asked a question of someone?
Yes, I could, but I could not hear his articulation of what he said.
All right, I'll move on.
Okay.
I said, you need to move closer. What in the hell?
A very disheveled looking beanie on his head, standing there. Second man in from the right margin.
Yes.
Who's that?
I believe that is Lieutenant Smith.
Thank you. The record reflects he's identified a man with a beanie on his head arriving on the scene at 20:43:35 as Lieutenant Smith. Proceeding. Do you see?
Justin Smith's patrol car.
We are at 20:44:26. Moving forward. Did you just see Tyree Nichols make a movement?
Yes, sir, I did.
And you see a black man with a baseball hat on, and you see the white man you were earlier identified as Robert Long of the Memphis Fire Department. Is that right?
Yes.
As Mr. Nichols fell over to his right, did you see the medical providers attempt to catch him?
No.
Want to watch it again?
No, I can answer the question.
Well, I want to watch. Is Mr. Nichols conversing with the two medical providers?
Doesn't sound like it.
She might attempt to use that to drown.
Yes. Pulled the bag away so that allowed him to just drop to the ground.
Going forward, 20:44:33. Okay, just a moment ago.
Yes.
Is he still laying on his side?
Yes, it remained there.
What is the recovery or supine position when it comes to emergency medical treatment?
It would be still upright against the car.
As it was originally?
Yes.
You see Mr. Nichols there now? You see Mr. Nichols?
No. I think he's still laying down.
What?
I said, I can't see him up against the car. I can only see what appears to be part of his body still laying on the ground.
No. Is that better? Do you see Mr. Tyree Nichols' head right there?
I do.
Where is it?
It's still on the ground right next to the bag that was pulled out from Nichols' head.
2045:48, where I pointed it out earlier. But you do see it, right?
I do.
move on. I have played it through the Wilson body cam through 20:45:48. I'm going to show you, but before I show you, I want to ask you, I know you've already said it, but out of an abundance of caution, did you review all body-worn cameras involved in this investigation?
Yes, I did.
You reviewed Officer Martin's body-worn camera regarding the attempted traffic stop?
Yes.
I would draw your attention to the screen for you to confirm or deny that this is Emmett Martin's attempt at a traffic stop. It shows 42 seconds from its beginning. Is that correct or incorrect?
Correct.
So if you will you monitor the best you can the length of time Emmett Martin had his blue lights on? It's off. It appears the blue lights are off. Correct or incorrect?
They're off, yes.
And what I see on the screen is the Axon body camera counter of 20:22:56. And in the bottom left or bottom toolbar, it shows 1 minute and 14 seconds had elapsed. So it's not to suggest to you the answer. Can you do the mathematics, please, and tell me how long Mr. Martin has blue lights on?
Well, it looks like it's over a minute. I got that right up, but.
Do you remember the first number we started at?
Yeah, it started at 27 seconds and it wound up at 54 seconds.
Without leading you. First number the record reflected, I told you, blue lights coming on was at 42 seconds in the lower left-hand corner.
Correct.
We are now at 1 minute 14. So would that be, give or take, 30 seconds?
Yes, pretty close.
Continuing on. That video ends at 20:23:15. A total elapsed time of 1 minute and 32 seconds of that traffic sport. What you just had depicted for you on the screen. Is that right?
That's correct.
Oh, wait, Judge. That what we just saw is part of that collected exhibit that had not been shown. Right. Is that right? All right, sir. On video, very important to us, you this court. So I'm going to play for you the MPD poll cam. Have you reviewed this poll cam video before?
Yes.
Approximately how many times have you reviewed this poll cam video?
Seems like over about 50, 60 to 100 times.
Do you have some points within the poll cam that you wanted to call my attention to so that you can tell me to hit stop?
I do.
Okay, I just want to make sure. We don't want to tie up anyone's time by fishing around for it, okay?
Right.
So I'm going to hit play, and you tell me what you need me to do.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And the spots you're going to stop us at are matters within your expertise. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. Oh, yes, sir.
Before we get into this line of questions, it may be a little bit, is there anybody in the jury that needs a break? I've seen the product.
Thank you. Okay, we've come to a stop today. When you know it's locked off up there. You're just going to trust me, right? I hit play at. What is that up there at the top of the screen where you can see the time? What can it is to go away?
Judge, the problem is, for some reason, it's probably my fault, but there's something that says connected to Elmo cast. So we probably need to get that off so we can see the, stay off full screen. Right here.
Always something going on in this month.
That's a great average. What? If we want to go off this version, because earlier when I was on this version, somebody said big screen. So all right, we are at 203235.
Nothing. I don't know what the hell dude looking for on the pole. This nigga talking about he don't want to tap nobody time. Yes, he do.
I want to ask you something. I'll stop it at 203326. Do you see lights reflecting off that brick mailbox cover?
Yes.
What it do, Black True?
Your studies of these videos that indicated that you.
Yes.
What was it?
Indicate there's a vehicle coming in and it's reflecting off from the headlights.
Based upon what I'm gonna call the wristwatch time of 20:33:31, that's 8:33 p.m. and 31 seconds. Is that right?
Yes.
Based upon timelines that we know from the first traffic stop, the 6705 pole cam, and when the call went out chasing the suspect, is it safe to say that the confrontation with Tyree Nichols is actually going on right now outside the screen?
Yes.
How it is that this camera is moving around. Where is this camera controlled from?
That particular camera is controlled from a pole mounted up in the sky. And it is not a fixed position. It is what I mentioned earlier, a pan and tilt. It can move. But this particular view is off to the left and it will be cycling.
You misunderstood my question. Who panned it? I said you misunderstood my question.
Yes.
Who panned it and who killed it?
It would be somebody in the control center.
At headquarters.
At headquarters,
That's us.
not at the scene, yes.
All right, play at 203331.
I'm watching this damn Thunder game and listening to this trap. OKC just will not miss. I watched them do this shit against the Grizzlies. Might be their year.
Okay. That's where it'll start.
Okay. Tell me to hit pause. Tell me if you see as for what you're testing in that frame.
But when I see obviously where the cars are parked and I see the officers, three officers standing, can't quite make out for, and I see the other officer, I believe that's Officer Mills off to the right-hand side, the other side of Justin Smith's patrol car.
I'm going to do it the old-fashioned way. You see that car pointing left and right?
Yes, sir.
Is that the car that the headlight? Reflections were on mailbox?
I believe it was, yes.
You can see the car with its back to the camera?
Yes, sir.
Do you recognize that person?
Officer Martin.
Okay. Now, do you see the fellow just up and to the left from Emmett Martin that has tennis shoes on?
Yes, that's Justin Smith.
You see the fellow on the ground? We know who that is. And the fellow standing just behind the fellow on the ground. Who is that?
That's Officer B.
Then you see a bald-headed fellow far to the right behind Emmett Martin's car. Do you see that person?
Yes.
And who is that?
Officer Mills.
All right. So right now, just for the record, what officers are on the scene at 203348? Run through them again.
Officer Martin, Officer Mills, Officer Bean, and Officer Smith.
And of course the suspect.
And Mr. Nichols, yes.
Can you play at 203348? And I believe you told me you stopped at 3405. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right, we'll do my best. What of significance is in that scene for your testimony today?
What was significant to me is I was able to see two officers depart from the scene. One would be Officer Nichols on the right-hand side, and then Officer Martin going towards his vehicle, which you'll see at the driver's side, right front fender, or left front fender. And you have two officers that are still bending over Mr. Nichols. One is Officer Smith, the other one's Officer Payne. And then during that time frame that eclipsed, Officer Smith stood up, put his head up in the air, walked away from Mr. Nichols while Mr. Payne was still watching Mr. Nichols on the ground, and looked up in the direction of that particular stop sign, street sign, and remained there for a short period of time, went back to the position next to Officer Payne and actually placed his hands, paused for a minute, and then bent right back over to Mr. Nichols and began to try to do something to control him.
To control it.
Mr. Nichols.
In that image that you had in Stockholm, are Mr. Nichols' hands secure?
No, they're not.
Is Mr. Nichols bladed? Bladed on one hip?
Yes, he's on one side of his body, which would be the right side at this point.
And is there any significance of suspect blading his body? If so, what is that significance?
Yeah, it is significant to me in terms of, I've seen it before with other suspects trying to control them. It's a position where it could be for an exit to get away from another officer. It's you positioning your body both for fighting as well as trying to get up off that ground. And it'll become evident in other video frames of what I'm talking about.
All right, I'm going to hit play at 20:34:05, and I believe you will be stopped at 20:34:19.
19, correct.
Just so the jury and all of us, the person walking back up to Nichols on the ground, his back is to us, is that who?
That's Officer Martin.
All right, I'm sorry for stopping you. Stopped early again, didn't I? What did Mark just do?
That's okay, we can do that.
What did Mark just do?
He just did a soccer type kick to his upper part of his body. Can't see exactly where that landed, but in that direction.
But my client, Justin Smith, you see what he was doing while that was going on?
Yes, still bending over Mr. Nichols at the time that the strike was made.
Bending over, doing what?
Well, I can't tell exactly what his hands are doing, but he's trying to control Mr. Nichols on the ground with his hands.
In play at 20:34:14.
All right, stop.
Went too far?
That's fine.
Okay. What is significant of where you're heading, stopping?
In addition to that, what you saw is the movement from Mr. Nichols. He went from his right side back to his back side, and then he'll flip over again over to his right side. And then you saw the positioning of Officer Martin. To me, that's pretty important because I watched him throughout this entire set of frames is what he was doing and how he was moving as the officers were trying to control him. Him meaning Mr. Nichols.
Based upon your expert analysis of video imaging, police tactics, Justice Smith, you see him there?
I do.
His legs are spread, he's over beyond 90 degrees. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
Can he see? Is it even possible for him to see Emmett Martin from that spot?
In my opinion, no.
Moving on from 20:34:21, I think you want to stop at 20:34:50. Is that right?
That's correct.
We saw another kick there, didn't we?
Yes,
we tried that question.
The hell? Back to this damn video.
You stop at 20:34:52. What of significance, in your opinion?
Once again, it shows the continued movement by Mr.
Hey, Miss B.
Nichols on the ground. And he wasn't passive at that point. He was continuing to resist. And I can tell what Officer Smith is doing. He's trying to grab his left hand and apply a handcuff to it. And I think it's either at this point or shortly thereafter, he manages to get one handcuff on that left wrist.
So the record is clear. Who's he?
He, again, meaning Mr. Nichols. And he meaning Officer Smith.
Okay, so again, so the record's clear. What police officer's got the handcuff trying to get it on Mr. Nichols' left arm?
Justice Smith.
And do we see that in this image?
We do. I see it, yes.
I'm getting play at 34:52, and I think you want me to stop at 35:19. Is that right?
That's correct.
I think these guys are going to get away with murder, but be charged with the aggravated assaults and things.
Stop.
All right, stop. During that snippet from 20:35:05 there-ish to 20:35:19, what did you see of significance from the standpoint of your expert?
Without having to go frame by frame for you to see it, what I saw was Mr. Nichols position his body off the right-hand side and start to move his lower part of his legs, his left leg. And I saw Officer Smith pull up on the handcuff. He's got one hand on the to position Tyree Nichols into a forward motion onto the ground. And as he was trying to do that, you'll see a struggle where the arm will go back up again. That's Mr. Nichols pushing off in one direction against Officer Smith. And then Tyree Nichols managed to get up off the ground in a rather quick manner before Justice Smith could push him on the ground, and began to move to his left. And
Move to his left.
Move to his left.
Who's his? Who is his?
Still talking about Tyree Nichols moving towards his left. Okay. You can also see the position of
He getting frustrated, like, you stupid son of a bitch.
Side, and they follow Mr. Nichols, they meaning the other officers, which would be Officer Martin and Officer Mills, around into a counterclockwise position. And you'll see, if we were to go back and play that over again, you'll see Officer Bean grabbing a hold of Mr. Nichols and pulling him backwards as Justin Smith is trying to grab both of his hands now up front and pulling him in another direction. So in essence, he basically made a circle and it was being pulled back, right back towards the position where he was initially on the ground. And then you can see Officer Martin circle around the patrol car. And I use the term almost stalking it because he initially was on the ground earlier in the frames that you saw. You could tell Officer Martin was circling, trying to get in and do something to Mr. Nichols, whether he was trying to grab him or whatnot. Can't tell through the video. But finally, when he reached around the other side, meaning Martin, Officer Smith was positioned with a left hand, while Officer Bean had Mr. Nichols' middle section. That's when Officer Martin struck Mr. Nichols in the head or in the facial region. And then Mr. Nichols was directed by Officer Smith and Officer Bean off to the side as he was starting, Mr. Nichols was starting to walk away. And then you'll see Justice Smith bracing his leg on the ground to stop Mr. Nichols, and that's when the tape ended.
It has been argued, you've been here in court as an expert, it has been argued that Justice Smith was somehow holding Tyree Nichols' arm to his side to permit Emmett Martin to do what he did. You've heard that testimony, or heard that argument, correct?
I did.
Based on your expert analysis of this video and the actions of Justice Smith, is that true?
No, it's not true.
By the way, you see the two stripes, reflective stripes on Justin, his bulletproof vest?
Yes, I do see him now.
Okay, you see the two reflective stripes?
I do.
What?
I do, yes.
And you also see Justin's left leg, left foot, is that right?
That's correct.
Does the positioning of Justin's rib cage and Justin's positioning in his left leg have any significance to you?
Yes, I believe he's being pulled forward.
By who?
By Mr. Nichols.
Was that the last snippet you wanted me to stop?
Yes, it was, sir.
Now, as part of your expertise or your in evaluating these cases, do you direct, oversee, and have prepared animations for demonstrating to juries what was going on with specificity?
Yes, I have.
And in order to lay the groundwork, lay the foundation, did you do that in this case?
I did.
And could you please describe for the jury and for the judge, what is that process of taking what we see video-wise and turning it into specific animation?
Yes. What we try to do in those animations is take the original footage, such as the poll cam footage that we just watched, and take it by frame, and superimpose it over an animated figure, and then rotate that figure in the same direction that the officer was moving into. So it's not just the made-up figure without a baseline. The actual figure that we're inserting over the image is taken off of a frame of the either a body camera or off of the pole cam.
So if we see a pink or a blue figure that we haven't seen before, are those figures overlaid over the actual images on the video?
One on top of the other, yes, sir.
We got on commission unlike to Clay. Would it be helpful for you to watch what you had prepared to explain your positions to the jury before we do the state scenes? Yeah. Okay, I don't want to argue it. I don't want to go back and look for an email that's sent, but I'll be glad to take a break and show it to you.
That's what we find. Ladies and gentlemen, your lunch has arrived or is about to arrive. So we'll begin with this next line of question. We're going to go ahead and excuse you all for your lunch. Just go ahead and let the jury sit down.
All right, I'm in my fast forward thingamabob. That did almost 4 hours before lunch. But now I forgot the news be there like an hour before. Jeez. Okay.
Stop, just tell me times in surrounding Justice Smith's actions. A process that you Thank you, Honor. Now, when we broke, we talked about a process that you utilize as part of your analysis of video and actions of officers on the scene. And we talked about how you overlaid and, for lack of a better word, is created into an animation which focuses on important parts. Do you recall that part of the testimony we went over?
Yes.
I prepared a video representation of the relevant times in surrounding Justice Smith's actions.
I did.
Your Honor, this has been shown, and I'm prepared to play it.
Man, his own rendition of what happened.
If at any time during this you want me to stop.
The defense paid good money for this rendition.
Yes, sir.
Now I want to see the rendition he did. Hold on. Let me see here. I had to go back some first of all. 533. Okay, hold on. Let's see how this thing acts.
Okay?
Yes, sir. Please pause.
sorry.
Okay.
I'll go back 10 seconds, okay? Can we hit pause?
Pause.
What is significant about that scene?
Earlier in my testimony, I talked about body position. That's pretty significant, especially for a body position is on the right-hand side.
I'm sorry, whose position?
Excuse me again. It is Tyree Nichols' body position is laying on the ground with his leg tucked. That's significant because what he's doing is changing his body position, I believe, to set up to get off of the ground. He's going to use his body position with his knee down and his other leg tucked to the ground. So to me, that was a significant point of contact. And the officer being Officer Smith, only has 2 hands on that handcuff. The problem with only 2 hands on a handcuff, one would think you could easily control an individual by holding onto the handcuffs. But the rest of the body is free to do what it wants to do, especially the lower part of the body where it's on the ground. You can use the ground as a what he's doing. He meaning, I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
He meaning is actually starting to come up. Okay.
Just in that image, are you familiar with the term called an iron wrist lock?
I am.
And that is utilizing a handcuff for pain buttons.
It is, yes.
And did you see in the analysis of the video that Justin Smith was attempting an iron wrist lock?
Yes, I did.
How painful is an iron wrist lock on someone?
It's extremely painful because it is making contact with the radial nerve in the wrist. And it's extremely, extremely painful.
If a pain compliance maneuver such as an iron wrist lock, does an officer sense or an arresting officer sense that it's having some effect on the person that they're applying this pain to? They either verbalize something or what?
Yes, there's an actual feedback because the officer's in contact with the individual that they're applying the pressure on. You would expect to have some kind of a grunting fashion or yelling out, help or heart, it hurts. Some of that type of a feedback that gives you an idea that, hey, it's working. I can continue to use it.
If the pain compliance techniques of the iron wrist lock had no effect on Tyree Nichols, do you find that to be significant?
I do.
How so?
That immediately, from my experience in training, goes to the fact that I think that individual is probably on drugs, number one, or maybe be psychotic.
You say psychotic?
Psychotic.
He play on the bottom bar of 1:21. The time stamp is 20:34:57. Zwicky, what do you see both on video and on the animation, Mr. Nichols' right arm doing?
I see Mr. Nichols' right arm being positioned in upward position at this point with Officer Smith, both hands on the handcuff.
Well, let me get to where we go back to live video. Let me ask you. Get up as close as you want.
Excuse me.
I'll turn these lights out.
I can't see from this.
Off all the way. Off. Do you see Mr. Nichols' right arm? It has handwriting.
On the left arm.
Look for his right arm. You know where his left arm is. Do you know where his right arm is?
I can't see it. Oh, yes, I can. I'm sorry. Yes, I do see it from there. I was focusing on his other arm. His other arm is his right arm of Mr. Nichols is resting on the pavement. His hand is flat on the pavement.
Moving forward. from the body positions of parties, the weight, and where Justin Smith has the handcuffs. Do you have an opinion what Justin Smith is attempting to do?
It appears to me that the officer is trying to push the right arm forward from that position to move Mr. Nichols' body towards him and then forward to the ground. And there'll be a follow-up, I believe, just after these frames.
Talking about?
Yes, sir.
What, based upon body positions of the parties and the movement, what is Justin Smith attempting to do with Mr. Nichols?
To me, it's pretty obvious he's trying to reposition Mr. Nichols forward, back onto the ground, onto his stomach.
What is proning? What does proning someone out mean?
Means putting him down onto their stomach so that they can then rotate the arm behind the back and apply the handcuff and gain control.
Do you see that occurring in this image?
I see it as an attempt to do that. Yes, sir.
Okay. Going forward. What is happening in this?
That's a completion, basically what I was talking about earlier about the pressure on the arm. Mr. Nichols now is up on his knees and he's got his right hand off point from the ground.
Is he coming up?
Or he could come up off of his feet and get into an erect position.
Is Tyree Nichols coming up off the ground on his own?
He is. He's not being pulled up. He's pulling himself up or pushing himself up. Yes.
He's pushing himself up, but what is Justin Smith doing, trying to avoid that?
He's trying to push him down.
Going forward?
That's correct.
No, I mean going forward. Okay. What is significant about, if anything, about Justin Smith's body weight, flexion, anything else? And it's significant about Justin Smith.
Yes. This particular frame, including the frame prior to this, shows that Officer Smith is pulling backwards in one direction, try to stop Mr. Nichols from moving forward, and his upper body go into a direction to Mr. Nichols.
It appears there that Mr. Nichols' right arm is free. Is that right?
Yes, it is. If you could pause.
You got to tell me.
Pause. Yeah. And I think it also illustrates if you look at Mr. Nichols' foot motion, that he is in motion. And the previous scenes that you just saw as well, if you were to look at the officer's feet, Officer Smith, Officer Beat, they're all in motion. There's no indication at those particular frames that Mr. Nichols was standing in one position and being held motionless so they could be hit. I think that was the critical point to show that this happened so fast and it was continual in motion that there was no opportunity for a stop and pause and hold somebody into a fixed position so they could be hit.
Going forward. Do you think significant about the body position of both Mr. Nichols and Justin Smith in that image?
Well, it's clear to me, Justin Smith's feet were spread wide. He's trying to stop Mr. Nichols' motion from walking forward as Officer Smith is holding onto his arm.
From the time the handcuff was placed on the left wrist, did Justin Smith ever let go of the left handcuff?
I did not see any, no.
Could he or should he let go of that handcuff?
No, number one, I didn't see it. I don't think he ever released his hold.
Yeah, I'm not
Period.
suggesting. Go ahead.
Yeah.
What would happen if
he
you let go of
shouldn't.
it?
And he shouldn't because it could be a dangerous weapon for him. It
How
is
so?
a dangerous weapon.
How
If
so?
you get hit, an officer can be severely injured and even killed with a loose handcuff. Officers are trained in the academy, and I've trained officers over the last 50 years doing that. Do not let go of that handcuff. Hold on to it for your dear life.
Going forward. Mr. Toyke, from that position, do you have an explanation behind?
The only answer I give to that, frankly, I don't know specifically, but they can't. I mean, to me, it's pretty obvious. He's been holding on to that left arm of Mr. Nichols, and he's tried to get it behind his back, and he can't. And I can surely demonstrate to anybody that if I don't want you to put my arm behind my back, you're not going to do it.
Going forward. All right, Mr. Solutions for you. When we talk about physiological human factors that police officers in critical incidents suffer from, you went through the list of different things that officers in critical incidents suffer from. Could you go through those again for me, please, and tell me what they are?
You're talking about tunnel vision, number one we talked about.
Let's talk about tunnel vision
Right.
first.
Okay.
What is tunnel vision?
Well, tunnel vision, simply put, is whenever you focus on something and you focus on something closely. As an example, my phone. If I look at my phone in front of me and I look at all you, I can see you. But if I look down at my phone, there's no way I can tell you where you are or what you're doing if I'm looking down at this phone. And if you can imagine if an officer is in a critical situation, and we use the term fight or flight, where the adrenaline starts flowing in your body, and you're focused on one individual you're trying to get handcuffs on, who has not been searched, and you've got chemical agents in your face, there's no way you're going to see what somebody else is doing because your focus is so intense on it. And another simple way to explain that is, and it happens to all of us, if you're commuting all the time and you go down a regular street all the time, and if you're talking on the phone or you get distracted and you miss, you're cut off. He even said that he didn't hear certain things when he was at the scene, but he did hear them in a audio tape that was replayed back to him in court. I think all those are examples of what that is, where you get so much focus on too narrow away from what we're normally adjusted to. Under normal conditions, we would say that right now I've got full, almost, you can't say 360, 180 degrees around. But suddenly what happens in a critical situation, the focus then narrows. And scientists have told us that it gets down to about 2 degrees. And when you think about it, 2 degrees is about like this. I couldn't tell you what the judge is doing right now because my vision has been blocked. But suddenly if I got something in my eyes, or find somebody that's got OC in my face, I get about like this, and I'm not going to be able to see.
What about if you wore glasses? Does that make it worse?
Well, fortunately, I can still see a little bit when my glasses are off. But when you've got OC, and I've had it myself just recently, you can't see. It's all blurry and it hurts my eyes.
We talked about Mills' earlier testimony that he could not recall later certain things having been said on the scene. Is that an example of what? Is that called auditory what?
Exclusion, basically, or narrowing as well. It's the brain that basically just shuts down your hearing. It's a protective mechanism. I know occurs because I've experienced, other officers have experienced it. I've interviewed probably over 100 police officers during my tenure in critical incidents of what they heard, what they saw. They were all affected by those phenomena.
The example of the field of vision going down to 2 degrees and then even getting narrower that you did with your hands.
Yes, sir.
When you're in a critical incident and you're focused, let's say on a set of handcuffs. Based upon that evidence, based upon what your opinions are, did Justice Smith have any capability of seeing what was going on around him?
I do not believe so. No.
That's all I have, Your Honor. No question. All right, State.
I'm sorry, no questions.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Mr. Zawicki.
Afternoon.
You talked in the very beginning about being, what year did you say that was?
Yes, ma'am.
In 87.
Either year, one of the two.
86,
Been
87.
quite a long time, yes, ma'am.
And to be clear, you're not here testifying as a friend of the court.
No.
You're
But
here,
I'm friendly to the court, but I'm not testifying.
you're here testifying on behalf of Justin Smith, correct?
That's correct.
Who is paying you?
The POR Act, I believe.
What is that?
It's a peace officers organization that these officers are a member of, and they're paying for his legal defense, their legal defense.
You testified at the federal trial,
I did.
and now you're testifying here.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you get paid by the hour, by the case, by the trial? How does that work?
It depends on what kind of work that I do.
In this case,
In this case, I'll be paid for testifying today. We're traveling from Idaho, California to here.
do you get paid for every day you've been sitting in this courtroom watching the trial?
Not that I'm aware of.
Do you get paid for your time reviewing the file?
For this particular case?
Yes,
No,
all
I've
my
already
questions will be
reviewed it.
about this
No.
case. I'm sorry, sir. Tell me what all you reviewed again. You mentioned a little bit in the beginning. What all did you review?
Well, I would have to list, I don't have everything in front of me, but all of the discovery from the state and the federal and all of the video evidence as well.
When was the last time you were actually an officer, law enforcement? Because now you're a professional witness. Would that be fair to say?
I do that on site as a professional consultant. Yes, ma'am.
So when was the last time you were an officer?
Last time was 2011.
You never worked for MPD, Memphis Police Department.
Sure did not know.
You ever worked in the state video that you have, I'm sure, seen before in all of your review. And this is going to be just the very beginning of Mills, I'm sorry, of Hemp Hill's body worn camera.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be what we refer to generally as the initial stop or the first scene. Are you familiar with that video?
Yes, I am.
I got just a moment to cue that up. Playing Hemp Hill's body worn camera from the beginning. We're just going to go through sort of the stop, and then I'll ask you a few questions.
Certainly.
seen that video before, Mr. Zawicki?
I've seen that one, yes.
Would you agree with me that's a pretty chaotic stop?
Chaotic?
I don't know what it is times, but it's
There
one of
are
them
at least
times,
3
so I'm
officers
gonna
on
enjoy it.
Yes or no?
Yes,
Do you know the names of those officers?
I think so. Oh, yes,
Would you agree with me? It's Hemphill, Martin, and Haley.
yes,
Tyree Nichols, our victim in this case, is the person they're encountering.
yes,
Would you agree with me that all 3 of those officers are simultaneously giving commands to Tyree?
yes. Sounds like it.
And is there any way possible for Tyree to follow all of the commands that are being given at once?
I couldn't tell you. I can't look into his mind whether or not he would respond or not.
Is that best policy in practice?
No, it's never the best policy, but it does happen, unfortunately, in chaotic society. It's always better to have one person do it, but things change as they rapidly evolve, and other officers do get involved.
You've testified you're familiar with the video as well as all the discovery in the case.
Nuggets come back and win. I think that's gonna take the air out of the sails of the Thunder.
Initially, where Officers Smith and Bean have contact with the victim, and right about the time Martin comes in for that first soccer kick, you called it. At that time, if Defendant Smith has described himself as holding Tyree down, would you agree with that statement?
He was attempting to hold him down. When you define what is down, he was on his right-hand side or left-hand side or on his back at times, but at
Smith
the point
said
that
he was holding him down.
Your Honor, that's the second time. You got to give the witness a chance to answer before the next one.
I apologize. Go ahead, Mr. Zawicki. I apologize.
but at the time that the kick was made, it's hard to tell whose hands were on who. So I couldn't tell you specifically if it was Officer Bean or if it was Officer Smith doing that.
Did you, in your review of the video, you heard Smith say, hit him?
Do I remember in the video that Smith said hit him? I don't remember reviewing that. I remember hearing it in testimony that somebody said he said it, but I couldn't make out it was his voice.
In all your 100 times reviewing the video, you never heard Smith say hit him?
I didn't.
That mischaracterized the testimony. He said that he didn't recognize the voice of Smith.
I'll allow him to answer the question.
That he knew the voices and was very familiar with Defendant Smith, which is why I asked the question. Defendant Smith said that after the punches from Martin, he should have intervened. I want to talk a little bit about duty to intervene. You agree that police officers have a duty to intervene when they see excessive force, correct?
I'm not clear on what you said. Who said? Clarify
I'll
that.
back it up.
Please.
You agree with me that officers have a duty to intervene when other officers are using excessive force?
Legally, they do. Yeah, absolutely.
And if Officer Smith said that after those punches from Martin, he had a duty to intervene.
Oh shit. Objection. Oh, the 3 officers over there chilling. Our courtrooms are outdated and old and a bitch. That's a long objection. Well, I'm only doing 5 seconds at a time, so. Huh? All 3 of them got on the same shade of gray today. Did they do that on purpose? That's very peculiar. God damn, it's a long ass fucking. We skip 3 minutes and they still ain't. Good grief.
Was made as matter. The last couple of questions specifically referenced things that Mr. Smith may have said. There has not been any testimony of what Mr. Smith has said, so I'm going to strike those questions. Any answers that you may have heard in response to those questions, I'm also going to have you strike those responses as that individual has not testified. So if you have anything in your notes, you are to disregard those from your notes, and those cannot be used later on in your deliberations. Statement received.
Thank you, Judge. The videos, is it your position that Justin Smith deployed pepper spray on this night?
I don't know if he actually, when you say deployed, did he take it out and have it in his hand? Yes. I didn't see through the review of the video that was any discharge from that particular canister. That's all I could really testify to.
At what point did you see that in the video?
Well, I couldn't, from memory, tell you exactly what the number was, exactly what place, but it would have been prior to Officer Mills actually striking Mr. Nichols with his baton.
We mentioned briefly that officers would have a duty to intervene if another.
There are conditions, obviously, when that would occur or how that would occur.
Officers would also have, you would agree with me, officers have a basic level of medical training to give a certain amount of medical care on scene.
Yeah, when you refer to basic, I mean, that's pretty basic what a regular officer on the street or patrol officer would have.
They also have a duty to provide what level of care they can to someone who needs that care. Would you agree with that?
Based on their experience and basically what their knowledge is.
When we were watching that sort of what I'll call animated video, you made who paid for that to be done?
It wasn't me, it was somebody else. I have no idea.
The animation, while cool, sort of turns the whole scene into a vacuum, right? We're only seeing Justin Smith and Tyree Nichols, right?
Well, so it's individualized. That's correct. It does not include everybody because you could not see everybody in that animation and get it programmed to do what we were trying to do is show what Justin Smith was doing.
Officers on the scene, right? We only see Justin, but we know that Mills was on the scene, right?
Yes.
Bean was on the scene.
Yes.
And Martin.
Yes.
All actively participating.
Yes.
What's it called? An iron wrist lock? What's an iron wrist lock?
It's not my term. It's MPD's term. It apparently is a technique where the handcuff is encircled on the wrist. Pressure is applied, especially with a double lock, or they call a hinged cuff. You use the frame of the handcuff to press up against the wrist bone and the nerve ending, either on the upper part or lower part of the wrist.
And you said it's not your term, it's an MPD term. You found that term in the Memphis Police Department training materials?
I believe I reviewed that in, I believe it was Officer Wright's testimony in federal court about that type of a technique. I don't train that, but they do.
So it's not a technique you're familiar with personally?
No, I don't use that technique. I use other techniques.
And how are you able to determine that that was happening in this particular situation? How do you know that Justin Smith was employing that tactic?
If I were to demonstrate, I could do that easily for you or anyone else. But I don't know how much pressure was applied. But it was given in a direction with a handcuff when he has it on the upper part of the hinge. There's only one way that handcuff can go once it's on the wrist. When you tilt that handcuff on the wrist, that's a pressure control.
I believe you testified earlier that you would expect a reaction, a scream, a shout, an ow. Something like that.
Oh, absolutely, I would.
And if that would be consistent with what you would expect, correct?
Not at that particular time. If it happened that time, I would expect it. But I think what I saw on the video was not at that particular time.
And you have extensive qualifications. We went over those earlier. You're not a doctor, are you, Mr. Sawicki?
No, I'm not.
Medical doctor.
No, no.
Did you testify that if Mr. Nichols didn't respond to that iron wrist lock, which you don't teach, that you're not familiar with, but you listened to in some federal testimony, that if he didn't respond to that, he would be psychotic?
Yes, Your Honor, mischaracterized the testimony. He actually gave two alternatives to why pain compliance would not work. One was psychotic, one was narcotics. Mischaracterized the testimony. Objection.
I'll allow you to ask the question.
Yeah, no, I testified earlier, if I recall, it would, in my mind, based on my experience, because I've dealt with people in similar, either a handcuff or by a baton, being struck as hard as it was against the radial nerve of an arm, that I would expect to see some pain. It would either be somebody was high on drugs, probably a narcotic, or secondly, they could be psychotic. They could have some mental problems. Those are the two conditions that would quickly enter my mind.
Psychotic.
Not that I'm making a diagnosis, but that's just what I would speculate that might be occurring.
In that, again, in that animated video, you talked a lot about how Justin Smith had the cuff on one wrist, left wrist, if I'm correct, and he couldn't let go of that.
Yes, that's correct.
And he can't let go of that because it's tell us again why.
Because it's a dangerous weapon.
And so he should hold on to that even if his partner is beating the guy.
Beating him to death?
He should still hold on to that left wrist.
Well, if he's beating him to death and the officer can see he's beating him to death, and it would be his responsibility to try to stop that, yes.
The video you've seen countless times. I'm going to play for a little bit and then ask you a few questions. Just pause it. 20-34-14. Is that the kick we've testimony as the first kick, the soccer kick?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree with me that that's excessive force?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you agree with me that requires a duty to intervene?
If the officer saw it, absolutely it would be.
Going to press play now. Pause it. 20-34-28. That's the second kick by Officer Martin while Officers Bean and Smith were holding Tyree Nichols. Would you agree with me that second kick is excessive force?
Absolutely it would be. If the officer saw it, would have a duty to report.
Thank you, Mr. Zwicky. I'm going to continue playing the video. Pardon?
I saw a punch. I can't tell you where it was landed because it's not clear enough. It's grainy, but I did see the punch. Yes, ma'am.
Do you agree with me that punch was excessive force?
Yes.
And if officers saw it, would that require a duty to intervene?
If the officer saw it, and yes.
Did you see another punch there?
I did.
You agree with me that is excessive force?
Absolutely.
And again, if officers saw that punch, that would require a duty to intervene.
If they saw it, yes.
You see that punch, 20-35 25?
I did.
Same questions, Mr. Zawicki.
Same answer, yes, ma'am.
Excessive force, duty to intervene.
That's correct.
Press play. Do you see that punch?
I did.
Same answer.
Same answer.
Do you see that punch?
I'm sorry.
Are you aware that there's another punch right after that one to the head?
There was to the head region? Yes. That's all I could see.
You agree that's excessive force?
Yes.
I'm going to back up a minute and go back to the first kick and ask you an additional question about that one.
Sure.
I'm going to change videos actually. I'm going to play the poll cam video with the audio from Officer Bean's body worn camera.
Okay.
Again, that was that first kick, the soccer kick, as we've referred to it. Officer Martin, Officers Bean and Smith are holding Tyree Nichols down. Did I understand your testimony on direct to be that after that kick, you described Tyree Nichols' movements as actively resisting?
After the kick? At what point?
After the kick. The movements he's making.
He's still resisting. Absolutely. He's not putting his hands behind. The officers aren't just simply yelling to give me your hands when his hands are up, but he's trying to get him behind his back. And I can't get into his mind or yours. At that particular point, he's still resisting. He's not complying with the officers.
Get your hands! Get your hands! Turn around! Lay back! Lay back! Lay back!
Pause at 20, 34, 37. Your testimony is that right now, Tyree Nichols is still actively resisting?
Absolutely.
Not just trying to survive those kicks to the head?
I'm telling you, it's active resistance. Yes.
Is it the punch to the head, the excessive force punch, which we've already discussed, that's him still actively resisting?
Yes, he is.
Bruh said he is not changing his testimony. Fuck she thought.
An officer just ran onto the scene. Did you hear what he said?
No, I didn't pay much attention to what he said.
Beat that man's ass. Did you hear that?
Yes.
You did.
No, I heard what you just said. No, ma'am.
Well, back it
But I
up.
heard what you said.
Hey.
You stop moving, and you put your hands behind your.
Did you hear that time?
I did.
Did you see the officer?
And this is after he took off running and he already escaped a tasing and a pepper spraying.
I saw him kicking, but I could not see where he was kicking.
But you saw him kicking.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Is that excessive force?
In my opinion, it would be, yes.
And again, anyone who saw that kick, that requires a duty to intervene.
Yes, if they saw it.
Did you see that kick from Officer Martin?
I did.
Again, sack kick constitute excessive force.
Yes, it would be the same answer.
Duty to intervene.
Yes, if they saw it.
Just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
That's right.
Mr. Zwicky, I'm going to just go in the order in which my colleague asked questions. You have stated to me on direct that you're being paid, and I think you said like the lawyers and like everybody else did
Yes,
here. But then you were asked on cross-examination who paid for the week you've been here in court, and I was surprised to hear you say that you've not been paid.
I have not been paid for this week in court.
Well, is there work that you've done on this file that you haven't been paid for?
Yes.
Okay. Then explain to us capitalist pigs why it is that you would work and not be paid. It's not because I'm refusing to pay you or Corac's refusing to pay you. Why is that you're willing to work and not be paid?
Your Honor, we approached.
All right.
I guess they'll be coming up out of it soon.
Now, back to my question. I'll leave out the capitalist pig comment. Explain to this jury why it is you, with 50 years of experience, have not been paid.
Because I haven't asked to be paid.
Why is that?
Because my testimony to educate the jury on what I believe is the truth about this case is more important than money in my pocket.
Now, have you ever had lawyers come to you and say, hey, I want to hire you to testify on my case and review my facts? Have you refused to work for lawyers or people or cops?
All
Yes,
this
sir, I have.
cap. He's unioning some more shit.
One, I'm not going to lie for the attorney that hired me, or I'm not going to give testimony for the attorney as to what the attorney wants me to testify to. I can only testify to what I believe the truth is, based on my review and my years of experience. And I think that's fair. And if I believe that the officer did something wrong in a case, which I've done, most recently in Texas, where I think that the individual committed a crime. I would not take the case because if I went on.
And then about how you MPD trains it and you did not train it. You were asked a series of questions about that. Do you remember that?
I do.
Were you here during Mr. Mills' testimony?
Yes, sir, I was.
Were you present when I asked Mr. Mills what an iron wrist lock was and what the effects of an iron wrist lock were?
Yes.
And what did he testify to?
I don't recall specifically, but I remember he testified about the wrist lock.
Did he testify that it was a pain compliance technique taught at the MPD?
Yeah.
The iron wrist lock.
That it was taught in the MPD Academy.
Without going back to the video, you were shown what Ms. Headley referred to as the first soccer kick and then the second soccer kick.
Yes.
Based on the time and based where Mills was, the OC spray, had it been sprayed by Mills at that time?
Yes.
All I have, John.
Mr. Perry? No questions. Mr. Leffler? No questions. All right, safe. All right, so those are all the questions we have for you. You can step down.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Welcome to stay. Ready for you to go.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, may he be excused? Now, have just 10 seconds to get him this equipment. Your Honor, for purposes of the record, I believe all lawyers will agree, including Mr. Perry, that we have had to take some people out of order and switching is not.
So you promise to affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth and nothing but.
Yeah, proceed, Your Honor, sir. Mr. Tisdale, please state your full name and spell it for the record.
It's John A. Tisdale, Tisdale.
Mr. Tisdale, have you?
Oh, yeah.
Years have you worked in law?
37.
And would your first years in law enforcement been around 1977?
Yes, sir. Be correct. At the University of Mississippi Medical Center, on the security or police force there, it's a state thing.
And have you gone through the academy in Mississippi?
Yes, sir. I went to Mississippi Academy and I also went to the FBI National Academy.
And have you served in different capacities in law enforcement?
Yes, sir. I served from being a rookie patrolman all the way up to serving as chief in 2 different occasions.
Were you chief ever in Tennessee?
Yes, sir. Gallatin, Tennessee.
And were you chief? How many years approximately were you chief out of Gallatin?
About 9.
And did you retire as chief of Gallatin?
Yes, I did.
Have you ever had any role in what's called post-certification?
Yes, sir.
What did you do in regards to post-certification in the state of Tennessee?
Well, I had to, I've taught at several academies and in some college classes I taught for a while for organization.
Did you ever do any work with the state of Mississippi in their academy?
I did.
What did you do in their instructor?
Yes.
Have you ever presented at any seminars?
Oh, yes.
And that's been throughout the last 37 years, I think.
Yes, sir. Just different times throughout my career.
So, and you've done the same in Mississippi as well as in Tennessee?
Yes, sir.
And have you presented places nationally as well?
Nationally, yes, sir.
Have you taught any online courses?
Yes, sir. I taught for about 3 years online courses for a university out of Denver.
Your Honor, Matt Prost. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Take a look at that document I just handed you.
Yes.
Is it your what's referred to as CV or resume?
Yes, sir, it is.
And you can pay that. having presented and instructed, are you,
I think I know quite a few former martial arts.
and have you instructed in that?
I did at Galveston. I taught our police department as well as a few guests that were there from other departments.
Have you ever been called upon to give what's called sworn testimony?
Oh, yes.
And I think according to your resume, it seems that you've been admitted into the Southern District Federal Court.
Yes.
You've been allowed to testify in the Western District of Tennessee as an expert.
Yes.
Various state courts.
Yes.
I see at least 60 times you've rendered sworn testimony.
Yes.
Have you been offered or tendered as what's called an expert?
Yes.
An expert in the areas of police policy?
Yes, sir.
What about use of force?
Yes, sir.
In this particular case, did you have an opportunity as a part of the documents that you were given to review the policy regarding the use of force continuum, taught and instructed about, or given instruction or participated in the writing of instructions regarding policy and particularly use of force?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever been denied the ability to testify in any forum as an expert in use of force or police policy?
No, sir. I've been limited in a couple of cases where there were some topics they wouldn't let us bring up. That was it.
But you were never stricken as an expert by any court or any forum?
No.
I attended the CV. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to offer to this court Mr. Tisdale as an expert in the areas of police policy and use of force.
Any objection?
No objection to Mr. Tisdale being seen as the expert, Your Honor.
All right. And there is an expert in police policy and use of force.
Back in the 2023, so just about 2 years ago.
Yes.
I placed a call to you regarding this case.
Yes,
Remember
sir.
that?
Yes, sir.
And at that time, I asked you if you'd be willing to file to be an expert in that case.
Yes, sir.
Now, on the front of a case, if somebody's in our before, do you have an initial review policy, or do you just never come to?
So what I tell ask me about a case, I'll do you an initial review for free because I don't know if I'm going to take your case or not till I know the facts. Because I may not want to, I may not agree with your person, or support their position. So in your case, you sent me the facts and I reviewed them, and then I sent you back an initial review.
And in the information that I sent you initially, did it include some videos that we had at that time?
Yes, sir, it did.
Did you have the opportunity to review those videos and the synopsis of statements?
Yes, sir.
And subsequent to your initial review, did you agree to at least continue service in this particular case?
I did because of the limitation of what I was going to be involved in. I was involved specifically to review the activities and behavior of one police officer, and this components in that situation that I don't care for.
And in your review of the situation, did you also say that you wanted an opportunity prior to saying, I'm going to jump in and do what you're doing today? Did you say you want to meet Tyree Bean?
Oh, yes, sir.
And
did
you have the opportunity to review documents and things with Tyree Bean?
Yes, I did.
And as a part of that process, did you go through the videos that were involved in this case?
Yes, sir. We did play the video back and talked about it, and then or the victim in this case, and we slowed it down and took a look at it. This is exactly how it was done, because under the policy for Memphis, you have an open-handed process and a closed-hand process, and we wanted to see which it was.
And you had, by that time, had you familiarized yourself with the Memphis policy regarding the use of force continuum?
Yes, sir. I was relatively familiar with it. I wouldn't say I could quote it, but
A physical presence at a location?
yes, sir. Basically, it starts with your appearance, and, show up. And sometimes that will accomplish things, and sometimes they don't.
What about verbal commands?
Yes, sir. That would be your next level, verbal commands, and then eventually from there you could go to open hands on, and then if necessary, then you'd go to closed hands, which is the more violent stuff, and then of course lethal would be the way.
And between closed hands or hard hands, empty, and lethal, is there? I see you have a cane with you. Is there an instrument that the city of Memphis has or allows certain officers to have that might be an intermediate form of force?
Well, you can use batons, and whether that's a regular baton or an expandable or asp. I mean, there's kinds. You can use those at levels less than lethal, because that's not a lethal force.
Have you ever seen an aspartame prior to this case?
Oh, yes.
All right. And is that the item that if you flick out a certain way, it can come out as a piece of metal?
Yes, sir. It folds up and then it extends if you flick it.
In addition to that aspartame, is there another intermediate form of force that would involve any sort of a canister or spray?
Well, you're talking about your OC spray or your pepper spray, whichever name you prefer. But yes, there is.
Now, you heard Mr. Sawicki testify earlier, and this week you had some health situations going on, so you weren't here for all of the testimony this week,
That's
right?
correct.
But you have been around people where the pepper spray has been deployed.
I've been around a lot of it. Not only that, I've been pepper sprayed through training.
Is it a pleasant experience?
No, ain't nothing fun about it.
And a straight burst of pepper spray to the face, can it be?
Because it does. It makes you feel.
Pepper spray enough on a suspect that might be resisting. Would that make that task somewhat more difficult than trying to arrest a person who's willing to put his hands behind his back?
But if he's willing to put his hands behind his back, obviously it's much easier than somebody resisting. And the pepper spray on a person being handcuffed, you got to be careful because you don't want to get that all in the officer's face. And in this particular case, that's what seems to have happened.
Would that in any way limit your ability to see or your field of vision?
Oh, without a doubt, it limits the field of vision and their field of concentration would probably become narrowed behind that because they'd be more worried about pain and discomfort.
Now, you heard your field earlier. Different people might describe it different ways, but when you're trying to focus on something, can you tell the court what you're thinking about if you're trying to put handcuffs on somebody that you've never met before?
Yes, sir. What normally first off, you don't know if they're armed or not, so you got to be careful. But when you grab their hand and now you're trying to cuff it, your attention's on their hand, but you need them on both wrists. Once you get them on one, you don't want to let go of that because that other cuff is actually used as a weapon. If it's slung around, it can cut you up. So you really keep your attention on the hand because if you control the hands, they can't pull a weapon, and you can hopefully get them cuffed without getting hurt.
What is the rule that you taught me about if there's
where you can control them and hopefully make sure they don't have a weapon?
And is it increased somewhat if you know or don't know whether or not this person might have a firearm or a knife or whatever they might have, that suspect?
Well, if you don't know that, that increases the danger and frankly, the stress.
You said that you had the opportunity to discuss this case with Tyree Bean.
Yes, I did.
And did you see a video, which we're going to call a body-worn camera, of Tyree Bean?
Yeah, I saw. Yes, sir, I did, but it's a bit limited because it came off during the altercation.
Do you recall seeing it? And we'll go to body-worn camera 1. Tyree Bean, this has already been more than 90 minutes. Give us just a second. I hope we're on the system. As you're looking at it right now, do you recall seeing this particular body-worn camera? This
Yes.
would be from the perspective of the person who's in the passenger side of that vehicle.
That's correct. Officer Mills was driving their car.
It was, from your information, Bean would be on that passenger side?
Yes.
Hey, hold on a second, Mark. When I ask you to hit it, just call out the timestamp, if you would.
So it will be starting at 20:31:28.
We're just gonna let it play through.
3303.
So it's a little over a minute and a half of
Yes.
video. When you saw that video from the perspective of Darius Bean, to Darius, and going back to the site that the door first opened, do you recall seeing a person that walks up
Yes.
that street?
Yes.
And do you recall that person being identified as the suspect?
Yes.
And at the point that you see, do you have any criticisms of the actions up to that point of Mr. Darius Bean?
No, sir. They received a dispatch that the suspect had been in an altercation with some police officers who were running and trying to escape. So they were looking for that suspect. And I think they were 3 miles or so away from where the initial stop was. So they weren't there for all of that.
So that initial stop, you were in the courtroom when the initial stop was being played earlier?
Yes.
The guy got the man out of the car and in the A-frame and all of that.
Yes.
To your knowledge, was Darius Bean aware of what all would have happened on that scene at all
No,
during this time?
No, so all he knew is that the dispatch was that they were in pursuit of a guy that had tried to spray and arrest, and he had escaped from the front.
And based on your knowledge, if Tyree Bean is sitting in the passenger seat of this car and he sees a person who meets the description of that suspect, and based on the knowledge that he has pepper sprayed, and this suspect is walking down the street wiping his face, if Tyree Bean says, "Hey," and the suspect turns and runs, can you tell this court what Tyree Bean is supposed to do as an officer if he worked for you in your role as police chief?
His job would be to get out and try to apprehend that individual, because it does make it appear that he's the subject you're looking for.
If the driver of that vehicle on that two-man team, when he got back to the station that night and said, "Chief Tisdale, Tyree Bean wouldn't jump out the car," what would be your response to that?
He'd be fired.
Any questions?
Not many, because, I mean, as a law enforcement officer, when you know that other officers are after somebody, you've got a responsibility to assist.
So what he has done up to that point?
Not at that point.
We're going to go to the body-worn camera of the driver, Mr. Mills.
Right.
And we're going to play it the same way,
Yes.
without interruption, until a certain point. We're going to play it until they're trying to get the hands of the suspect.
Yes.
We'll stop there.
This is starting at 20:32:05.
What's this? What's this? What's this? Cascade Lake. We're up to Cascade Lake. Shut the fuck up.
Or OC Street this point. And is this the point?
Yes.
This point,
Yes.
I'm going to ask that we go back 20 seconds. I'm going to play it in half speed.
Yes.
And give us the stamp.
This is going to be 20:32:59.
What street is this? What street is this? What street? Cascade Lane. We're up in Cascade Lane. Shut the fuck up. You want to get sprayed in? Hey? Watch out!
a few questions to this point. Did you see where the hands of Mr. Bean was landing in relations to the suspect?
Yes, sir, hitting on his forearms. He's left trying to push his arms back when he brought them around. They're open. That's an open-handed technique. It's not a punch.
Did it appear that any of those blows landed to the head of the suspect that we come to know as Mr. Nichols?
No, sir.
The language that was used, we've heard the term verbal judo this week.
Yeah.
Could you explain to this jury about language on a scene such as this?
Well, it's like anything, and that's a highly nervous, irate, scared situation where everybody's all tangled up. So you're going to usually hear some bad language. I personally don't like that, but it's not that unusual. It's already normal.
On a scene such as this, are you trying to use language to make whomever it is come into compliance with what you're trying to
Exactly. Whatever it takes to get his attention to what you're trying to do at that point. So if he'll concur and do what he should do, then hopefully nobody get hurt.
We're going to play at regular speed the remaining portion of that, about another two minutes.
What's up, Travis? Give me a man. Your hands are oh shit. Oh shit. Ross and Cassidy, we are east of.
To this point, as he had handcuffed him. Yes, sir. I apologize. Let keep going for another minute.
Man, this you taste the shit.
Okay, 2036-46.
All right. So we've seen through minutes of Mills's body-worn camera.
Yes.
And going back, you see at one point it appears that someone drives up and gets out.
Yes.
And do you remember seeing that person coming up and administering what's been described as a soccer kick?
Yeah, he came up and tried to kick him. Yes.
And we've looked at the videos, right?
Yes.
Could you ever determine definitively whether those kicks landed or to the degree in which they landed?
Well, not absolute, but you could tell that on the first kick, if you slow it down, it seems like it's more on top of the head than you would think, at full speed, as opposed to being, flush. But you really can't, it kind of disappears on the tail.
Do you remember us looking for the specific movements in relation to Darius Bean when that occurred? where does it appear that Mr. Bean is?
Yes, and then the cuff on the face is full of that pepper spray because he's trying to hang on and look down and, not let go of.
You heard a few moments ago questions regarding the duty to intervene, and I assume that on cross-examination, you might be asking more questions regarding the duty to intervene. Can you explain to this jury the reasonableness and whether or not Mr. Bean's actions were reasonable in relation to a duty to intervene?
Well, in that particular case, he could not turn loose of that cuff because that's not a 3-minute affair. You're not talking about, a long drawn out thing. So there wasn't a lot of time there. Would it have been nice if he could? Sure, it would have been. But that's not always a practical solution at that point. Plus, it's questionable to me whether he even saw the kicks and the hits, because when I talked to him, he told me he did not. And we know that he got sprayed with that pepper spray on at least a couple of occasions.
When you have a person that's down, did it seem that one person of everybody?
I don't know if they went up. I think they will when they typically go to the defendants. They didn't call an objection. I still find it really, really, really peculiar. All three in gray looking ass outfit. Look at the sheriff's department behind them in solidarity. Goodness gracious. No. Shoobity-doo-dee-doo. What he telling them to strike?
Have referenced some statements from Mr. Bean. We have not heard any testimony from Mr. Bean or anything of that regard. So the court is going to strike the 2 questions that were referencing or that made reference to statements made by Mr. Bean. And the court is going to ask you all to strike that from or strike any responses or questions from your notes and instruct you all that you cannot go back and use that information during your deliberations.
Why did it say? Oh, that's what he said about Justin Smith too. I was about to say, why did it sound familiar? Them instructions.
I might ask you some hypotheticals about if a person is under the conditions of being blind and the pain of OC spray and attempting to put handcuffs on someone. Do they have the opportunity to jump up and say something to another person about what their actions are about to be?
No, sir, it wouldn't seem reasonable.
Would it seem reasonable that that same person would say, hey, I'm gonna let this person go because you attempted to kick or might have kicked this person? Is that reasonable based on your experience in law enforcement?
No, sir.
Did it appear to you, just based off of your observations, whether or not Bean's actions regarding the attempt to try to get this into cuffs, was it reasonable?
Was his actions reasonable?
Were his actions reasonable?
Yeah.
The 2. While he's pulling that up, when a suspect has been in an altercation with officers, is there a duty that you have taught regarding medical care or providing any sort of medical treatment?
Well, if you think he's injured, you have an obligation to notify medical. And
once people that are considered EMTs or emergency medical team, with EMTs, once they arrive, who is the higher standard of health care on that scene?
I'll be the EMT. I mean, they're going to tell you what you need to do and whatever you do, whatever you got to do to assist them.
Did you ever observe Tyree Bean do anything to obstruct the administering of treatment to Mr. Nichols?
I did not observe anything of that nature.
And this is with the various body worn cameras that you looked at?
Yes, sir.
If during the course of EMTs being on the scene, and then once a paramedic arrives, if the paramedic or EMT would ask the officer who has handcuffs on the suspect to remove said handcuffs, what would you expect that officer to do?
I expect him to remove him if it's reasonable to, and by that I mean he's not still acting crazy. And I believe, and from what I saw on the film, they did remove the cuffs once the medical people got him.
5725.
This is on that same scene.
Yes, sir.
I believe that EMTs and at this point paramedics have arrived.
I got one, bro. I saw my front line from.
Yeah. If I propose to you that that is the body worn camera of Tyree Bean.
Yes, sir.
If you see that person wearing that body worn camera appear to unlock the handcuffs after being asked by a paramedic, does that appear to be reasonable?
Yes, sir, it does.
Now, if there are questions or not, if there are questions that are coming from a paramedic or an injuries, do you expect an officer to say one way or the other what has happened or answer those questions?
Expecting to answer the questions of the EMT because they have the medical knowledge.
If there are no questions being asked of the particular officer, what would you expect the behavior of that officer to be on the scene?
Stay out of the way. Not cause any confusion and support.
And if those officers if those medical providers or healthcare providers are on the scene and they're observing this particular suspect, do you know of a duty to start rendering a play-by-play of what has happened moments earlier?
No, sir, I'm not aware of any such duty.
In review of the MPD policy, did you see any such duty to go play-by-play about what happened or show body-worn cameras to the EMTs or paramedics or anybody?
No, sir.
Based on your experience, could that be a form of interfering with their?
It could be, depending on what all was going on and how busy everything is.
There have been introductions of Bad Bob. You remember that?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
The Bad Bob exercise. The jury has seen it a few times as right now. You remember? Can you recall what that Bad Bob exercise is from what you saw?
If I remember right, that's the one that after they spray the guy, he goes up and hits him in the elbow.
The type of training that you would recommend in apprehending a suspect?
No, probably not. I would recommend trying other techniques before you got to the elbow, having it hit in the face. But that's dependent on what that individual's doing. I mean, because that's just a dummy standing there. So a lot depends on what that individual's doing.
And do you, as an officer, rely on any of the things that you've been trained in the academy regarding what behavior is right and what behavior is wrong?
Yes, sir.
And if you're under a situation where you've been pepper sprayed in PD training academy, or to actually engage in what the training, for training, good training, regardless, in what that training has taught that officer.
So you expect the officer normally to hear their training. That becomes your habits and the things that you do, especially when you're under stress from spray or whatever, where you're not thinking clear. You know, you just go back to what you've been trained to do.
Spend about a minute on, or just a few moments on questions that are just specific about your observations and your opinions in regards to those observations. You saw Tyree Bean, you said it earlier, but I want to be clear for this jury. When he observes the suspect walking down the street and description that came over the radio, what would you expect Tyree Bean to do?
Expecting to apprehend the suspect.
And do you have any criticisms of Mr. Bean's actions at that point?
No, sir.
Once he
He
gets,
asked him to stop, and the guy just refused, and then started running.
when he gets to the suspect and attempts to tackle or take down the suspect, do you have any criticisms regarding that?
No, sir. It's the time he arrived, the suspect, I believe, it was Officer Smith drove up pretty close to the same time, and they took him down. And that's not unusual to cuff a guy to get him on the ground where you can control him.
Is it easy or pretty difficult to handcuff a person who's non-compliant with your verbal request to be handcuffed?
Well, yes, sir, it's difficult.
Is the difficulty increased somewhat if there are certain conditions that might be either outside environmentally, if the ground is wet, in other words?
Right.
If the suspect is not adhering to any of the commands, would that make
it all makes it more difficult.
Right. And so you don't have any complaints regarding or any sort of statement to give this jury that those were less than reasonable to try to get him on the ground and to put him in cuffs.
No, sir, that was not less than reasonable. Especially after because you do hear on the tape repeatedly them telling him, give me your hands, get down. And, he's obviously ignoring that.
Attempting to control this suspect on the ground, even after another officer comes up, and you were pretty candid about the fact that you do have a complaint regarding the kick to the
yes,
to attempted kick to the head area, right?
Yes.
Now you are familiar with the hands policy that says kicks are want to kicks.
No.
Do you have any sort of complaint or any sort of comment regarding whether or not it's reasonable to continue to try to get this guy under control if you're Tyree being in that situation?
Oh, absolutely, it was reasonable. In fact, it was expected.
Fight.
Stay in the fight.
Yes. And what does that mean to you?
It means you don't quit.
Did one of the officers have an opportunity to kind of walk off and catch their breath some?
Yes, I believe that was Mills. If I remember right. I know after he sprayed that pepper spray, must have got some on himself the way it sounded, when he walked off like he was trying to get his breath.
And even at that time, even after the point that it appeared that Mr. Nichols at some point appeared to get up from the ground?
Yes, sir, you got it.
Is it as your experience as an officer, if you have a non-compliant person, is it more difficult to arrest a person who's standing up or to arrest him if he's on the ground?
It's more difficult to put him standing. Usually on the ground, you can get better control of.
In that an easier or more preferable, let's put it that way, preferable arrest to take him to the ground or to continue to have him standing up?
Take him to the ground.
Why Ben Crump got his shiny ass in?
When he does stand up.
Yes, sir. He's still trying to pull it back, pull it down.
Did you see his hands placed on the waist at some point?
At one point, yes, sir.
Did you see his hands on one of the hands?
Oh, yes, sir. That's where the cuff is still attached.
And to disengage at that point, or to try to start a confrontation with an officer who might be administering 3 blows to his face, is that
wow,
dangerous
all
or
that
not?
was cut off.
I
said, why Ben Crump got his shiny ass in Memphis talking about this case?
You've been called upon to ask questions regarding certain factors. We're not going to get into the names of factors and all of that. But anything that you have seen in this particular situation that in any way, on behalf of Tyree Bean, that you have a criticism of or that you say was inappropriate action taken by this MPD police officer?
No, sir. And everything I've seen, Mr. Bean wasn't even on the scene at the risk. He sees him and he goes after him. All of that's totally reasonable. And take him down and try to cuff him. There is absolutely nothing I've seen that shows Bean hitting or kicking, and that's problematic for me, but either one of them do anything like that.
I did not have this marked in. Based on that, this time.
Mr. Leffler, Mr. Dingle? No question. All right, Mr. Zuma?
I don't have anything else.
All right, Tate?
Tisdale,
Yes, ma'am.
sounds like you had an extensive career in law enforcement. Is that fair to say?
Try again, I couldn't hear you, man.
I'm sorry, let me step up a little bit, okay?
Well, I'm about half deaf, too.
It's okay. It sounds like you had, now the acoustics. It sounds like you had an extensive career in law enforcement. Is that fair to say?
Yes, ma'am.
I think you said about 36 or 37 years.
Whether you want to count when I was teaching, but I had already retired then.
Gotcha. And then you started off in a patrol car,
Yes, ma'am.
like any other officer, and you worked your way all the way up to chief.
Yes,
Is that
ma'am.
right?
Yes, ma'am.
Chief in 2 different agencies.
Yes, ma'am.
And you talked about, and I know we want to limit our testimony to what Beans did, but you understand you've been intended as an expert in use of force in general, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And so with that, I want to talk about some of the stuff that we've seen, because you've been in the courtroom today, haven't you?
Yes, ma'am.
You just went through some body cam with Mr. Perry, right?
Yes, ma'am.
You said that every action that Tyree Beans took, and we'll talk about those actions, but that was reasonable.
Yes, ma'am.
But you would agree that everything that happened out on your scene wasn't reasonable.
Based on what I know, because you have to remember, I wasn't hired to investigate that part, so I didn't question people or look, into more evidence than what was approaching Mr. Bean. Sorry.
Oh, can we approach another? Brought you in the shit out there gone.
Asking you out on the scene.
Yes, ma'am. I obviously have some.
Asking you, Mr. Tisdale, I was just asking you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
And I was asking you about pretty much the force that was used out on the scene.
Yes, ma'am. I obviously have some questions, but I haven't investigated those other areas because they didn't involve Mr. Bean.
I understand. Well, I'm gonna just ask you generally, okay?
Yes,
Is there, you would agree, because you said in your report that there was some conduct on this scene that was inappropriate, right?
It appears that way.
And that conduct that you're talking about, there would have been the punches to the head, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
There would have also been the kicks to the head, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Your colleague who just took a stand not too long ago, that not only was they inappropriate,
She sound like she like to
there was
argue.
excessive, right?
There was no objection, Your Honor. 2 things. 1, characterization of Mr. Zwicky, his colleague, that's inappropriate. Sorry, and number 2, then she just characterized what Mr. Zwicky said. Objection.
I don't know whether they are or not. I don't think that it's that consequential, but as far as the testimony, I don't know if that was necessarily the full testimony. You can ask him what his
Mr. Tisdale.
Yes, ma'am.
Is a kick to the head of an individual who's on the ground, would that be excessive?
Would that be a what?
Excessive.
Excessive under most circumstances. Not, it'd have to be something really crazy, to have it happen.
It had to, can you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, I said under most circumstances, it's excessive.
It wouldn't have been
Tisdale pulling a Woody.
to release Tyree's hand because he was holding on to the cuff. They're right.
Yes, ma'am. Well, Mr. Bean was holding on to the cuff. The cuff was on one wrist, if I remember correctly.
And you said if he released that cuff, it could be dangerous because the cuff could cut a bunch of people, right?
Yes, ma'am. You go to the cuff, if it's not closed especially, it's like a razor almost, when it goes to swing.
But if Mr. Bean wasn't holding that cuff, then he could release the hand to intervene, couldn't he?
And it's still questionable about releasing the hand, because if you release the hand, the suspect has the ability to do more.
That's okay. But you would agree that releasing the cuff, grabbing somebody, that's not the only way to intervene, is it?
No.
Simply saying, hey, don't do that. It's intervening, right?
Well, it's trying to. Now, whether the individual responded to that or not, I don't know.
Well, it's trying to intervene, right?
Right.
Simply saying stop.
No, ma'am.
You talked about how if medical personnel made a scene, if they don't ask questions, officers don't have to volunteer information. Is that right?
No. Normally, you wouldn't bother them. You leave them alone and let them treat the guy.
Yes. And you say you're an expert in policy as well, right?
I can. Yes, ma'am.
And you review MPD policy for this case.
Yes, ma'am.
If there's something in MPD policy that says officers do have a duty to let medical personnel know what's happening on the scene.
I'm gonna object, Your Honor. If she's gonna ask the question specifically on the policy, she could at least show the witness what she's referring to. It's all I'm asking.
I think the question is whether he knows. And so I'll allow her to ask the question.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Tisdale.
Yes, ma'am.
My question to you is if MPD policy is that officers are supposed to tell medical personnel what type of force has been given to an individual, then that's the policy that someone should follow, right?
Yes, that's without knowing what all's in it. I mean, I don't know, factually, the officer told him or whether or not Mr. Bean told him later, because if that was all it said, yes, ma'am, but I don't think that's all it said.
You talked about how officers are supposed
Default to their training.
So officers are supposed to follow training. You
Yes,
agree
ma'am.
with me on it?
Well, you would like to, yes, ma'am.
And you said you reviewed MPD materials. Are you aware that MPD only teaches 2 types of kicks?
Yes, ma'am.
What are those 2 types of kicks? Neither of those kicks are kicks to the head, are they?
Oh, no, ma'am.
Would you agree with me that any type of strike to the head could be deadly force?
Could be, yes, ma'am.
Judge, one moment. Judge, that's all I have for this week. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
They finna end up recessing for. Let's see.
Okay, I just didn't want to be disrespectful.
They got them standing up telling them.
Your last name Jones? You ain't
Dun, dun, dun.
Why is you groaning? Why in the hell are you groaning and moaning and carrying on?
I'm not. That was suspense music, Terry.
That ain't no damn. No. Sound like you shit. Sound like you shit.
Oh no, they brought his pale ass back. They like, hell no, nigga, you finna get your money's worth, my guy. No, you thought it was over? No, too, cause this was Friday. We almost up out of here though. 16 more minutes of testimony.
Mr. Tisdale, you were asked a few questions a moment ago, and I just have a couple follow-up. You were asked if it would have been.
I just want to say Bartholomew needs a 10.
Kick, without justifying as to what anybody's told you, period. But just under the hypothetical of if you have been blinded by pepper spray and you're trying to apprehend someone who's not coming into compliance, is it practical for that person to let go or to in any way say stop to anybody if they don't see what has happened? If they should say stop you.
You're more worried about yourself.
Is your focus pretty much on the issue that's at hand?
Yes.
And I approach you.
Thank you.
You look at that document that I just
Yes, sir. It's a police department.
If you look at it, see if going midway down the page regarding the duty to intervene from MPD.
Yes, I'll see that duty to intervene.
And is that the MPD policy that you reviewed with me before?
Yes, sir.
Can you read the first line of that policy?
Conduct or abuse of the subject shall take reasonable action to intervene.
Now, action trying to get Mr. Nichols reasonable actions.
Absolutely.
And would it have been reasonable for Mr. Dean to stop what he's doing in order to in any way stop what some of the officer is trying to do regarding the suspect at that time?
No, sir.
And to have stopped what he's doing, would that have created any sort of more dangerous or less dangerous situation for the officers on that side?
It would have increased danger.
And I'd ask that be marked as this in exhibit.
We'll show the MPD policy procedure section. Rules, 1 page, as exhibit 39.
Thank you. I don't have anything further for the witness.
Mr. Tisdale, you spoke briefly earlier about verbal judo, correct?
No, I think this is beyond.
I acknowledge that I've heard of this.
Beyond the scope of any recalls. Mr. Perry was limited in his questions to just 2 or 3. Doesn't have to do with it.
Do you have a response?
I would draw a question.
All right. So that sustained. Anything else for this witness?
No, sir.
So those are all the questions we have for us, sir. You can sit down. Please watch this up.
Well, thank you very much, sir. You got a good crew.
They done brought this old ass man in there on a walking cane.
Moving it in this hour, I'm going to call short particulars on behalf of Justin Smith.
All right.
I think his name is Tate. Mr.
Last name Tate.
T-A-T-E.
Sir, do you solemnly swear affirm that the testimony you give today will be the truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
All right, without zero.
Thank you. Could you please state your full name and spell it for the court reporter, please?
Yes, sir. It's first name is Curtis. That's Curtis. Last name is Tate. That is Tate.
All right. And how are you employed?
I work for the City of Memphis Police Department.
And how long have you been? Are you a police officer?
Police officer, yes, sir.
He
You're a police
looks
officer in the police
sketchy.
department. How long have you been a police officer in the police department?
A little over 6 years.
And do you know Mr. Justin Smith sitting over there?
I do know Justin Smith.
And how long have you known Justin?
I've known Justin Smith for 5 years.
Have you worked directly with him?
I have worked with Justin Smith.
And of Justin Smith?
I have, sir.
Could you please share with the jury and the judge what your opinion is regarding Justin Smith's character?
Yes. My opinion of Justin Smith is he's an honorable, honest guy. He is a loving father and a husband. He is professional, he's kind, he's gentle, and he's courageous. He's incapable of, in my opinion, of hurting a victim, any suspect, and any citizen. And what I know of Justin Smith is if Justin Smith knew that
How much did they pay this racist white guy to say this?
and he would confront that officer. I know that Justin Smith, I know is the kind of guy that if your mom or your daughter was on the wrong side of a mistake and had to be taken into custody, the Justin Smith that I know, that's who you'd want to do it because he'd make sure that they were treated fairly. That's the Justin Smith that I know.
Are you familiar with whether or not Justin Smith has a reputation within the Memphis Police Department and specifically the organized crime side? You don't work in organized crime, do you?
I did.
You use information regarding Justin Smith's reputation amongst the Memphis Police Department and the OCU umbrella, for lack of a better word.
Absolutely. It's the same reputation that I just spoke to you all about. He is an honest, hardworking, courageous, fair person. He's incapable of being untruthful. That is the Justin Smith's reputation that I know of from working with him in the organized crime unit for the Memphis Police Department.
That's all I have for this judge.
No question, Judge.
No question, right? State.
You said Justice Smith's a good person.
Yes, sir.
Good people sometimes do bad things.
Yes, sir.
You agree with that?
Yes, sir, I did.
I heard a word that you said I don't agree with. Okay.
Yes, sir.
I've heard incapable. Good people can do bad things.
Yes, sir.
That means good people are capable of doing bad things.
Yes, they are. Yes, sir.
Right. So you would never say a good person is incapable of doing bad things.
I'm saying Justin Smith is the Justin Smith that I know of, sir. That's all.
Good or bad thing. Not to intervene when excessive force is being used right as headlines.
In general, it's bad, sir.
So sometimes good people can do bad things.
They can, sir.
Sometimes they can let us down.
They can, sir.
Now, you've seen the videos that made its way around the media. Is that right?
I have seen some of the video. Yes, sir.
And you testified, the way you testified, that Mr. Hagerman skillfully talked to you about good people and bad people, and good people can do bad things, good people are capable of doing bad things. That line of questioning. Okay?
Yes, sir. I think that he was speaking in general. Yeah.
You're getting ahead. Does he, the Justin Smith that you know, is incapable of harming a suspect?
Yes, the Justin Smith I know is incapable of harming.
That's all I have now.
Anything else this witness? Yes, sir. All right, so those are all the questions you can start down. Yes, sir. Right, ladies and gentlemen, the jury was going at it for some time. At this time, we're going to go ahead and excuse you all for the evening. We are going to get started again tomorrow morning. We'll have you all back in here ready to go. But please rest well. We'll see you all tomorrow morning.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I guess in about 7.5 more hours, I will do part 6 in the morning. I'm sleepy. All right,
Is that why you were grown?
anything? Shout out to who?
I say, is that why you were groaning and moaning because you sleepy?
I just told your ass there was no groaning and moaning. There was suspense music. The hell? You got jokes. You think you're just a regular old comedian, ain't you?
No, I'm not. I'm not. Good night, y'all. Y'all have a blessed, beautiful night.
You going on tour?
Who? No.
Hey, to book you at the Funny Bone.
Nope.
All right, y'all. To the next episode. We out.
Bye, y'all.
Never been a hoe, I stay on go, so what the business? Nigga talking reckless, shoot this bitch ass with the quickness. Now he bleeding, sorry, begging, asking for forgiveness. Bow, 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 limp biscuit. All my niggas wildin', they done labeled us a misfit. Wake up every morning, 2 or 3, 5 in the tidbit. Oh shit, didn't nobody come to see you old, it's some focus. Shoot 100 shots, no reloaded. Master of the game, you would think I'm into coding. Memphis niggas spit this pippin', mackin' like I'm golden. Hope with my money, you gon' turn me to the old me. Say hi, first class flight, I'm in the nosebleed. Copy, cooking, whipping, shipping, till we count the proceeds. OG, I've been moving back niggas since 03. Low key, niggas hating, but they don't want no beef. State gang, true sippers, bitch, I bet we don't eat. Get jammed, get a lawyer, make it bunny, don't speak. Pour up, I need some more. A nigga had a long week. Shout out to my plug, he showed me love, he out in Long Beach. I'm true geek, walking by myself but left with 2 freaks. Ooh wee, nothing in they mouth and on they booty. Austin Power swag, yeah baby, this is groovy. You can call me money boy or you can call me nudie. Hood niggas, churches, chicken, let me get a 2-piece. Top down, 2-seater, let me feel the 2 breeze. Gotta hold it steady, chopper, kick it back like like Bruce Lee. Lately I've been in the zone, I guess I'm in my 2-3. Don't call my phone for nothing less than a QP. Feeling like the Migos, cause my bitch is bad and bougie. All my haters love me, all these bitches just some groupies. Came a long way, I like to introduce the new me. Standing on business like I'm king or like I'm Drewski. Call me Ron Island cause I like my love for choosy. When we link it's a movie, she bustin' like a Uzi. I love the way she do me, I beat it up like Uzi. She dancing just like Suki. Call me Ron Island cause I love my love for choosy. When we link it's a movie, she bustin' like a Uzi. I love the way she do me, I beat it up like Uzi. She dancing just like Suki. I never been a hoe, I stay on go, so what the business? Niggas talking reckless, shoot his bitch ass with the quickness. Name pleading, sorry, begging, asking for forgiveness. Pussy ass nigga, Limp Biscuit. Never been a hoe, I stay on go, so what the business? Nigga talking reckless, shoot his bitch ass with the quickness. Name pleading, sorry, begging, asking for forgiveness. Limp Biscuit.